too, and now it might
Oh,
have been
yours.
a little bit too. Yeah, might have been a little
Yeah, I
bit too
could like
harsh.
I could feel the aggression through that comment. Yeah.
I was a little bit pissed. It's like, listen, it's okay to open up about health conditions and actively try to resolve it for everybody to see, because this lifestyle
Yeah.
has put so much strain on us. And like that's what I did. Okay, I got non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, the worst thing ever. Right, 25% of the people have it. So I'm like, there's not so much information about
That's
this
the
stuff,
problem.
and it's way
is
more
it's-
common. So let's just talk about it.
Yeah, such a stigma around stuff that people don't understand too. So when you say you got non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, people are like, that sounds bad. And no one realizes how many people have it. So then they put you in this boat where it's like, who are you to talk about health when you had this? It's like, it would be like saying you can't give advice because you had like a fucking cold sore, like herpes, you know?
Well, I mean, I resolved it. That's the difference between me and so many guys that just push it under the rug, and they keep competing, all right? Or they keep following the bodybuilding lifestyle. I gave it up completely and continued when everything was healthy. Plus, I did testicular ultrasounds and MRIs, and I scanned all of my organs just to make sure I was in the green. And now I'm very conservative of what I'm doing, even staying in a caloric restrictive state. That's why my face is still streamlined, even though I'm on cycle. Right, so I feel that it's okay to open up. I mean, which is the American roughneck bodybuilder who gave the bodybuilding lifestyle up also. What is his name?
Seth Feroce.
Seth Feroce, right? He opened up about all that stuff also, about the good and the bad. And this way, the next generation can look at it and say, okay, maybe this hardcore bodybuilding stuff is not really worth it. Or maybe I should go a different direction, right? Stick to classic, because it takes a toll on all of us.
Or at least be concerned about what may happen to you, so you scan. What I would just talk about the NAFLD thing for a second. A couple of things you did that are awesome. One of the things is that most people who are worried about their health don't go and get a scan for everything, find out exactly what's wrong, and then work their hardest to defeat it, which you did, and reverse it. And that's a great example for others. And also, the second thing is that NAFLD, I always believed, and from my first videos on YouTube, I was saying I believe bodybuilders in general have NAFLD. Like I would say, I assume 70% of pro IFBB pro open bodybuilders have fatty livers, maybe fatty pancreas, fat in between their organs, and that it plays some part of the role with the gut tissue, some part.
Yeah.
No,
I'm sure, because like a lot of guys, they come off for a year to fix their gut, right? And then they can pull a vacuum again. It's not because they came off steroids; it's because they cleaned out completely all of the fat around their organs.
Yeah, let's tell the audience that haven't been following us for a long time, right? The first 2 days, your visceral fat in the liver is gone. If you don't not holding a lot of glycogen, if you're ketogenic and you fast for 2 days, the most of the fat on the liver is already gone in 2 days. So, but the bodybuilders are never having much time without food. So the liver is always working, and it can't get rid of fat on it because it's full with nutrients constantly, So
right, and then all the pharmacology involved, right, preventing you from really regenerating your liver.
Exactly.
It's a compounding of.
And another problem with the pharmacology is that it encourages the development of scar tissue in the liver when it's inflamed, like cardarine. Yeah. Cardarine does that, which is scary,
The weird thing is, like when I went on cardarine, it completely resolved the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Because it massively improves insulin resistance, right?
Yeah.
But it also
and then it changes your metabolic profile within cells, shifting to fat metabolism predominantly. So, right, I did an ultrasound before, and then I went on a 6-week fasting mimicking diet with cardarine, and then it improved massively. Of course, the caloric restriction was significant also, to the point I lost all of my gains. But that was what it was required to get it resolved, because I have no idea how long it was present.
Actually, by the way, Steve, I've always thought that too. I've always thought that if some bodybuilders with like serious fatty liver, the only way you're going to get rid of it is you're going to have to lose a bit of muscle, because you have to starve yourself to get rid of it. Exactly.
Yeah,
I never want to do that.
No. So I did first all the supplementation, right? Every supplement known to man, every pharmacological intervention to get it resolved. And I was in a caloric restrictive state and doing cardio. And it only improved at 50% over a few months. So I was like, okay, I got to brute force it. Right. And so that's why I took everybody on that journey and said, listen, this is way more common than you think. I've seen so many fibro scans and ultrasounds in the meantime. Right. And for the respect of the people that contacted me, I'm not going to name drop, but it is freaking common, dude.
Yeah,
it is freaking common. And especially with larger bodybuilders who force feed and right? You got to eat 5,000, 6,000 calories daily just to maintain your body weight, and well, discounting the drugs involved, but it's very, very common. So it's okay to get that resolved and slim down and right, go into a little bit of different direction. And I feel it's not okay to sit there and talk about health when you're not addressing your own health.
That's true.
Sorry to say it, but dude, just get yourself fixed, you know, and blood work is not enough. You need imaging.
Exactly, which is good. You know, it's a great thing. Some of the bodybuilders are encouraging imaging also for their, you know, this thing down where they want to test people and stuff like that. But I want to ask you something about Joesthetics. I was recently, you know, I've actually known 3 people so far since I opened the channel who were like either subscribers or consultation clients who had symptoms of what apparently is called rippling muscle disease, which Derek told me about. Apparently, Joesthetics has that. And you have a video on that, right, Derek?
Yeah, it's a CAV3 gene mutation.
Oh, so he does have, because what I found out, apparently there's 2 phenotypes. There's one has the CAV mutation, and which is interesting because originally they thought that they had intracellular calcium issues, but CAV is related to something else. But the other group, they have an issue in something called titins or connectins. And those people have an autoimmune disease that causes them to develop rippling muscle disease. So I was curious if he confirmed his genetics or not, because if he has the autoimmune one, it's progressive.
No.
Oh, no.
Okay. No, so it's a little bit difficult to get to 23andMe here. We still need to talk about this. I've been procrastinating. So we've tried basically everything to get it resolved, right? From taurine to electrolyte balance to calcium channel blockers, and nothing works. So it's just something that, like, his gimmick is there to stay. I don't think it's going to go away. It's just
what a weird paradoxical thing to end up being like a viral social media influencer because of your like gene mutation. Like that's wild.
Yeah. Oh, it's very rare, right? And then the problem for Joe is that, like, we went to a bodybuilding show last weekend where his girlfriend was competing. She won. First show, first place. So good accomplishment on her. She looked great. And then everybody knows him, of course, because he's got 5 million followers. So everybody asks him, take your shirt off and do the ripple thing. Take your shirt off and do the ripple thing. And at one point, it's like, dude, I gotta. So I took him aside. I said, okay, it gets old fast.
I can just imagine him being like, brother, I'm not doing the rippling muscle.
Yeah. No, so he just goes with the flow, right? He says yes to everybody and taking pictures, to the point he was completely forgetting that his girlfriend was doing a show. And everybody asked him for pictures, not his girlfriend, who just won the show. So it can be a little bit frustrating. So I'm sure he took a little break from going out in public after that.
Steven, is he weaker because of the shaking or the nervous system firing in the muscle? Is it unusually?
No,
weak?
But he's a little bit concerned going heavier because, like, if you put the muscle under stretch, it's generally where it happens, right? When you stretch it out. So if you were to go heavier, then it might ripple to the point he gets a muscle injury, right? That's, well, you know, with the severe estrogen reduction that he did in the past, and getting himself into a bicep tear situation, he just got to be super careful. But listen, he doesn't need to build any more muscle. He's got one of the best physiques on the planet, right? Judging by his popularity. So all he needs to do is maintain, and for that he doesn't need much. Right? We're not going to discuss that in detail. That's Joe's prerogative to discuss.
But he's pretty open about his doses now and what he's using.
Yeah, now he is. Yeah, now he is. Yeah.
It's funny because I didn't realize how much of it was like sponsor related. Because like when I was talking to him, but when I was doing a podcast with him, I was like, "Are you willing to talk about this?" And he's like, pretty much before it was, he didn't want to, piss off sponsors and stuff. And I'm like, well, shit, like, I guess I sponsor, so say whatever the fuck you want. Like, I don't care. Like, I want to know. Gotta be careful. Tell everyone.
Yeah. You got to be careful because it is a solid source of income. And, right. So this is another problem with the fitness industry as a whole. A lot of pros in the past, right? They, with whatever sponsor they have, they couldn't be open about what they were doing, even if they wanted to. To the point, some guys, like in the Bigger, Stronger, Faster movie, where one of the athletes of Muscle Tech
that
taking steroids.
Yeah,
he got dropped. He dropped. He was the first athlete just to say it openly. Remember that quote from John Romano? "Where are the bodies?"
Yeah, that was insane. That was. There's literally lists on Get Big. He's on Get Big. He knows the list. I don't know why I said that. That's funny, but But I want to ask you another thing. So my thought when I was talking to this consultation client about the rippling muscle thing is, my fear was that because the person exercises a lot. My fear is that, you know how some of us can hurt our kidneys if we get excess muscle wasting from like rhabdomyolysis from exercising. I wonder if these people are more predisposed to rhabdo because the muscle's constantly moving more than it needs to. And it's causing little muscle damage all the time. And specifically, my thought isn't just rhabdo, it's what about the heart? So
I always wondered if he'd have like arrhythmias or some shit.
So the autoimmune kind, they have like myopathies, and it comes in their heart. I didn't look too much into the genetic kind.
Yeah, like any movement making everything like ripple out of control from a lack of like electrolyte balancing and whatnot, I would think like the electrical circuitry of your cardiovascular system would be something.
Whatever.
I've never heard him talk about arrhythmias or anything like that, but I'll mention it next time I see him, because he's been cycling for a minute now. And,
has he had a EKG?
Not that I'm aware of, no. But he's coming to Bangkok soon, so I wouldn't mind to push him to go.
Because an EKG is like the easiest, like least invasive thing ever for assessing like the electrical component.
Right, but it doesn't determine anything because it's just a moment in time. But it's a start, right? So you go from the EKG to the 48-hour Holter monitor. That's the same thing, but you wear that as a suit, basically. So you have the electrodes, 7 electrodes on your chest, and you just wear it for 48 hours. That's how I determined my arrhythmia in the past.
EKG, you can check for, well, I guess it's only arrhythmias for like the 10 minutes you're there or whatever, right? Yeah. Like the only reason why I see it having some utility is because it's, like in Canada, for example, it's the only thing you can get proactively without having to like lie through your teeth about your like family history and whatnot. You can just be like getting your blood work and just be like, get an EKG to you while you're there, rather than have to go to like schedule a specialist and wait like 4 months to go see somebody. So just at least getting something is worthwhile. If you're
right. It's a start.
Yeah.
It's a start.
That's very true. The other thing I want to mention, Steve, just real quick, the guy I was talking about had rippling muscle disease, he has had very good results from using yohimbine. Very interestingly, like unbelievable results, 30% improvement or something like that in his.
Yeah, that's what Joe also got. He was using the Rubulsine from Derek. He got fucking shredded glutes and shit now. I told him, dude, just step on stage one time. You don't even need to drop water. it's like
Leo, whoever you're talking about, tell him we'll send him alpha yohimbine to compare.
Excellent.
Because it's superior, in my opinion.
So how did you guys like Trap Lord Ross? I sent you guys a 1 hour, 2 hour and a
What?
I didn't have a chance to watch it.
How did you not watch it, bro? I got half an hour in before I turned it off. I was like, this is insane. This is the coolest stuff.
Yeah.
So for the audience that doesn't know, there's a channel called, I think, Trap Lord Ross. It's a British guy who knows every single detail about the like gang wars in Chicago and makes like 2 hour and a half videos that are really entertaining and very interesting, mostly about rappers. But I was watching yesterday, I'm like, this has 200,000 views. Like, if you build it, people come.
Dude, the fact that you find that so enthralling in itself, and the fact that you absorb the information, and I've seen some of your like videos that do well on like the mafia stuff. Make videos about it, even if it's not science.
I didn't tell you guys this, but that's the honest reason why I was looking at it, because I have a lot of friends in LA from the different, like I know a lot of stuff about it, so I thought I could interview people and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I would be interested in this.
Well, then even if you don't interview, just doing like the actual historical whatever is like, I don't know what his video was compiled of, but I get like a vague idea. But doing that, and then maybe separately you have your pharmacology videos of all the rappers who've died from ODing on this or that or this, and like, dude, there's so much. And it's what you enjoy, evidently, to consume yourself content-wise. So
then it's easy to make.
No, I don't actually watch that stuff regularly. I came across it by accident. YouTube recommended it, so I was watching something related. But I was just shocked. It was really impressive.
I can literally feel through the monitor how excited you are about it. So like that indicates you should be doing something with it.
That's true. True.
Make a video. Maybe it will go viral.
Dude, you could have even done like a reaction video summarizing what you thought of that video.
Yeah, the truth is, I just think that I'm not that interesting. So like, I don't want to talk about stuff that people like. I don't know if I'm interested. You know what I mean?
70,000 subscribers, you're not interested.
If it makes any difference, I like very infrequently watch any channel to a point where almost every video I watch, like I have very limited time to consume content. I watch almost every video you put out.
By the way, I didn't know that. That's a huge, big compliment. Really, I know you watch some of them, but I didn't know that. This is
dude. Like even your bio news, your like random historical shit, pretty much everything you put out.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys,
well, it's not kind. I literally just want to. You know. Yeah.
I watch most of it for sure.
Yeah. By the way,
including the podcast.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I mean, the podcast is not so dense, but it's hard. Like I can't be myself completely on podcasts except with you guys, because I feel like we're very similar. We can talk about similar topics. Sometimes with other podcasts, I can't, like, it's less scientific or less introspective or whatever.
You like the nerdy stuff. Well, we're here for you.
I like nerd. Yeah, that's true. So, by the way, Steve, have you started working on your merchandise thing? You were telling me about that like a month or two.
I wanted to, but it's impossible to set it up, especially during COVID. So I've went through like 6 manufacturers, and it's
we could help you do it. Probably. I've been wanting to do merch for me and then sell it through GorillaMind.com. Like I want to do is have like a subsection on the website with like athlete specific merch. And so it'd be like a subsection for more plates, more dates, a subsection for whatever athlete wants to be in it. And then you get like a disproportionate cut, like above and beyond your normal commission for every sale of it. And then we handle all the manufacturing, all the holding the actual, stuff, the shipping it. So you don't have to do anything except approve designs and like try on the clothes and stuff. That's something that's fallen on the back burner. I've been wanting to do for like a year, but it's just like one of those things, dude, that just
it takes forever. So I went through manufacturers and the design process. I got a couple good designs of unique clothes, even with the old school, right, where this opens, and then so you flex your bicep, the t-shirt expands, but it doesn't. So all these things I got laying around, I just couldn't get the designs right with the manufacturers here. But I got super nice fabric, similar to this Under Armour tech, and then they wanted like a huge deposit. I'm like, what, with the way you produce this, it's not worth.
No, we'll do it, dude. Like, and also to note too, Young LA, like me and Gary are tight enough at this point where it's kind of like we kind of like treat each other as like we're his supplement company and they're like my clothing company. Mm-hmm. So like he would be happy to make any Young LA piece with nothing on it, and then we could put our own like graphic on it.
Oh, okay. That's really high quality stuff. Okay.
Yeah, we need that performance.
Yeah, I'm literally wearing it right now.
Because that's the reason I mentioned, because like, we have such loyal and kind subscribers. Sometimes they're like, hey, make some merch. They just want to support. And my issue is
Bio Bros merch. Didn't even think of that.
And I'm very picky. You see, I wear the same shirt every time because I'm very picky about the fabric or whatever. So I just want to make sure it's high quality thing. So that's why I never did it, But we should have a Bio. Yes.
I was able to find the fabric here, but they can't do like a larger size with a small waist. So I had like a double XL, right, tie size, and then the waist is like a poncho.
No, you could pick like whatever your favorite Young LA shirts are. You could just like let me know, and then we could just slap a design on it. See what happens.
Yeah. Sure, if we can do some drop shipping, and just sell it all from one website, it would be great.
Yeah.
Let me close this curtain because I'm just 7 o'clock here in the morning, so the sun is coming up. Second.
Should we probably tackle the athlete subject first, and then maybe
Yeah. So just to give a preface, so I did the video recently responding to Fouad Abiad's podcast where they talk about pro bodybuilder dosages, and he was kind of talking about my channel and how I talk about, I don't know, what some guys may be either not disclosing what they fully do, and they're kind of like downplaying their use, etc. If you guys haven't seen that video, then definitely check it out. But I elaborated in that about how we have, over the years, as our profiles have grown, we've sort of been asked several times to like audit and or design, protocols for athletes at various levels and up to, like the top Olympia level. And people want to know always, what's the top open Olympia guys doing? Like, how do they, prep for shows? How much drugs are they using? What are they using? What's the logic behind their choices, etc. And we were in the process of auditing essentially a health and diagnostics protocol for one particular athlete who places in the top, very top, I'm not going to disclose exactly, of the Olympia, very, very consistently. And he also sent his full protocol because obviously we need full disclosure to assess relative to what he's taking, like why his biomarkers are where they are, what kind of diagnostics he should be getting, what makes sense, if his protocol is designed in an intelligent way, in our opinion, and essentially give our 2 cents on it. And, we asked him afterwards. This was unprompted. It's not like we asked and then he gave us the protocol where he could have like fucked with the dosages and stuff to make it seem more responsible. Like before that, we needed to know full transparency. What are you using so we can actually help you properly? Gives us all that. And then after, I sort of had the idea, this would be a good educational moment for, all the audience who is interested to either learn something and or, be mildly entertained by the content that we're going to like review it and audit it live for you guys and provide some harm reduction, hopefully, and some just general like broad spectrum education on what people are actually doing at the top level, or at least this guy in particular. And he was up for it. So we're going to be going through that now. And Leo has a pretty elaborate document with the biomarkers we have, what we're going to suggest in terms of moving forward, what kind of diagnostics we'd like to see him getting, his current cycle that he used for the last Olympia, and so on. So we can start at the top here with the biomarkers in question.
Would you like Derek to start with the biomarkers or the cycle? Whatever you'd like to start with.
We can just go top to bottom. So I think
So this is just our initial correspondence. We kept, our log. This isn't our full log. Obviously, we edited it to show it on the screen, censored it a little bit. But this is our log of our communications with the athlete. When the athlete came to us, he only had 2 blood works on hand. One was from November 2019. One was from March 2021. Both of.
So to clarify, this athlete is trying to be. He's seeing what's going on in the industry, and he's trying to be more proactive now and actually be more elaborate. Because as you can see, you're probably thinking, why is a top Olympia guy getting 2 blood work assessments in 2 years? Like, not ideal, obviously. So that's kind of like, again, us coming in a little bit.
Yeah, plus the blood work parameters that we've been promoting over the last 2 years. Right? It's not common knowledge yet. So as we'll get into this document, right, his blood work was far from complete of what we expect of a top level athlete like this. So, but it's a start. Ideally, these guys do blood work every month, every 3 months, not once a year, twice a year.
Well, I just comment briefly on this. What Derek's saying is absolutely correct. I realize the audience doesn't know the client. The client is really concerned about his health, but not because he has a health issue. Just because he wants to protect his health. He's a person naturally averse to using drugs. He's not a drug guy. He says privately to us that the worst part of the sport for him is the drug use. He doesn't like it. He's fearful about his health. So he does blood tests, but he didn't himself know much about the biomarkers individually. So these 2 blood tests maybe don't have the ideal biomarkers. You'll notice before we even talked about anything else, we recommend him to check his blood pressure 3 times a day at random times for 3 days, switching arms whenever he does it. Record his heart rate for those times. If it ever exceeded 120/80, record again for a week. And then
just a little comment on that for the guys that are insanely large. Usually an arm cuff doesn't work properly anymore, so you need an Omron 7 that goes around your wrist. And then make sure you keep a little bit of space here between your wrist and your where you take the measurement, because otherwise you're putting it on the bone and then you don't get an accurate reading. So for this guy, I would take a measurement of an arm cuff and a wrist cuff and then take the average.
Bro, I was listening to it and I'm like, how big is this guy's arm? Then I realized we're talking about him. I was like, most people know that I'm that big. I've never had to use that.
If you have over 20 inches, right, the arm cuff is not that accurate anymore. And it could be a discrepancy of like 20%. So I have a wrist cuff, right, that is a little bit more accurate, but the wrist cuff has a tendency to underread. So I usually take the average. You can do it at the same time. You put the wrist cuff here and the arm cuff there, and then you just do it at the same time. Sit down for 5 minutes and rest a little bit, and then take your measurement, and then you take the average.
And also, Steve, we should just, for those that didn't notice, the reason you're switching arms each time is it's a cardiologist's trick to find out if you have a peripheral blockage somewhere in your upper body. Or in general, actually. So that can be just a quick way to notice. Now, by the way, I've told people, so many people do this since I've started the channel, and sometimes people do it, and one side is 140/80, and the other side is 110. And so they have something. They go to the cardiologist. So it's a free way to check. So his blood work from 2019 is here. He had liver values. He only had 3: ALT, AST, GGT. His inflammation here, he had a neutrophil and lymphocyte. I was able to make a ratio for them. And then he had his lipids, and interestingly, only estradiol was there, I think. Maybe testosterone.
So to clarify, the timestamp of November 2019 is relative to what point of the Olympia in 2019? Like, was that the Olympia September, right? Normally?
In 2019, it was in September. Then in this 2020 was in December.
So November 2019, September. He was in his like clean out phase.
In both of these, in a clean out phase, but I don't know how it was exactly in relation to the Olympia. But he previously, this is a great point and good time to bring it up. Previously, and a lot of bodybuilders do this, they only test their blood work, like Steve mentioned, only when they're off. And like 2 months later, well, this is only representative of that minute of time. If most of the year you're on, and we talked to the client about this, we want to know what it looks like when you're on too, which is what we have in the future blood work we'll review.
Ideally every month. At this level, every month. And I know it's annoying, and I know it costs money, but you need to see the trend over time, not just a moment in time. You need to see the trend. And if you're anal about your health, make graphs. Just put it into graphs, see how your liver enzymes are changing or how your creatinine is going up. And if your creatinine is going up disproportionate to your body weight, check your cystatin C, right? Do additional markers just to make sure that there's no kidney issues manifesting over time.
You know, it's something I think I might end up doing. So like with supplements, you know, supplement companies that sponsor athletes, they give them as many free supplements as they want, and they get commissions for, you know, selling supplements. I was just thinking for a monthly comprehensive blood panel, like some bodybuilders might find that cost prohibitive in their head, which is obviously silly relative to the overall cost of their drug burden and lifestyle and everything. But maybe something for me in the future to look into is sponsoring bodybuilders to not pay for supplements, but to like give them a part of their kickback is like a comprehensive blood panel, like once a month. Sort of thing.
Idea. That's a
you'll be the industry first. Yeah, you'll be an industry first.
That was an amazing idea, really.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way,
are you gonna pull them to the side if their blood work is not ideal? Said, hey, this show.
Well, my doctor would tell them. He would be like, "This is what's going on." That's the beauty of Merrick Health.
Derek, I was going to tell you, he got the astragalus and the citrus bergamot. He's very grateful. He told us, awesome. I'll pay you back. I said, no, Derek, it's Derek's gift to you, but it was very nice of you. It'll make those are really things that we want to address. Let's go over this briefly, the old blood work. I'll just maybe take them to a tour. You guys can comment. The liver health, ALT and AST are the standard liver enzymes. The ratio is important here. It's odd. Usually ALT is a sign of acute damage as opposed to AST maybe sustained. Interestingly here, remember he's off cycle, right? So he had a lot of sustained damage, but currently not too much acute toxicity compared to the sustained. Then the neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio is low. I was like, thank God, maybe this guy doesn't have high inflammation, because for those that don't remember, a plaque sort of developed by metabolic dysfunction, inflammation, times atherogenic particles. So when you have all three, so immediately we saw his inflammation wasn't too high here, but he's off. The LDL-C, I was like, wow, 80 on, and he's off, but still 80. That means this guy has some protective genetic polymorphisms to not produce too much cholesterol. And we'll see that's confirmed later. And then his estradiol, it was sort of relevant because we were talking about PCT stuff. And he had
a recording, right?
Yeah.
Let's double check. Okay. Because I forgot to click record, so you're going to need to send me the file after.
And now you've scared me. I don't know if it's.
I'm recording.
You scared me there. I don't even know how to check if I'm recording now.
Because I'm seeing it in the top screen here. It should be somewhere there.
You know what it is? Because I'm sharing my screen. I'm recording. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. One of you guys, please send it to me after.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we got down to there. Now in March 2021, closer to this date, is ALT and AST ratio got a little bit better, and the AST, I think the AST went down. Yeah, the AST went down there.
So to confirm AST and ALT, how there seems to be a slight disagreement on if those are elevated significantly through training, and
I don't know if there's a disagreement. Maybe Steve has seen different things in practice, but in the literature, it says that muscle damage will mostly elevate the ALT because it's more of an acute responder.
Mm-hmm. But like, how far ahead of time should you not train before a blood test?
1 week, ideally 10 days. It takes that long for the liver enzymes to come down in bodybuilders. So over general population, it might come down in like 4 to 5 days. But with bodybuilders, it takes significantly longer.
So obviously, if they're checking on a monthly basis, that's impossiple to ask them to do. So what would our happy medium recommendation be for bodybuilders?
Well, is it that important?
Because you still check it.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so you check it every month just to see if it's not increasing. And then once every 3 months or once every couple of weeks where you need to do a deload, you schedule that particular blood work right after the deload. Maybe every 3 months you fast. It's hard to do it during contest prep, or during the off season, you should definitely do it. Fast for a week. We'll get into this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease tangent a little bit later, I'm sure. And then you check your liver enzymes to see if they come down. And from my experience, my own blood work and many of the clients that follow my practices, the liver enzyme should come down by half over the period of a week if they're related to training and perhaps a little bit stress or inflammation, right, that is caused by the supplements that you're taking. So if you take a step back, do a deload, take a step back in regarding your supplementation and all the food that you're eating, which could also raise your liver enzymes if you're eating the same food day in, day out, which is very common with bodybuilders, especially high caloric diet, right? Can also raise your liver enzymes to a certain extent.
Sure. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, and then it should come down. If that's not the case, then it's time for imaging. So
that's a good clarification to make, though, because a lot of bodybuilders are going to be like, well, I'm doing this on a monthly basis and I'm supposed to not be training before. So like, as long as they are aware that the longitudinal data of where it's trending is important, and they only need to take maybe a couple days before it for their like longitudinal data version. And then every like, I don't know, 3 times a year or something, they do that like deload or whatever, where you have a big disparity between when you do your stopping training and testing, and then see how much it drops, if any, and then you know how much of it is actual liver toxicity versus muscle damage. So I think I don't think anyone said that specifically with like a guideline. So
no, and plus then you still have 4 data points over the year where you took a week off from training, and your liver enzyme should be the lowest possible, assuming you're not running a fuck ton of orals during that time, right? So that you also have the time if you're in contest prep or at the end of the off season, you take a deload somewhere midway, but you're on oral steroids. There's so many overlapping factors. That's why we check the gamma GT to make sure that it's in the ferritin to see if there's any liver inflammation present, right? And we combine all of these blood work parameters with organ imaging to kind of assess what's going on. But if you do it monthly, at least you can assess the trend. Is it going up? Is it going down? Right? And you have 4 data points where they should be at their lowest. And if they're still out of range at their lowest, something is going on.
So I have a slightly different opinion on this. I just want to voice it for the audience in case they want to look at my opinion. My opinion is that this is completely unnecessary. If they work out the day before or the day of, I don't care personally. If the ratio of the ALT to AST is like, you can have an ALT of 80 and worked out yesterday, but if your AST is 80, bro, that didn't happen from yesterday.
No, that's from drugs.
The second thing I want to mention, we don't just have the ALT AST, we have the GGT and ALP. And the weird thing is, when you see a GGT not elevated, but ALT is elevated by itself, AST is not, I'm not too concerned. If ALP is not elevated also, if maybe 2 or 3 of them are elevated, we know you can triangulate, there's a few things. And then again, about the kidneys, which of course Steve was saying as well, but about the kidneys as well, we don't even have to worry about that at all. You're not looking at your creatine kinase, which we have here. You're not looking at your actual creatinine. You're looking at cyastatin C and symmetric dimethylarginine, which are not affected by working out. So you can triangulate constantly.
So this highlights the importance of the comprehensive markers, though, because if you were just doing a basic panel, then you would be having convoluted data based on the primitive just ALT, AST markers.
Yeah, and we'll show an example of that even for our athlete here in the next section. But just to go real quick, so basically the trend here we saw a year later, similar. The AST is still, very high. GGT is similar, also isolated, not too high. His creatinine is 102. EGFR was 80 here. I hope that it hadn't gone worse by this year. By the way, guys, blood urea nitrogen, just to say quickly for the audience, when you eat a lot of protein, this will always be high. This is something that you can't.
And this is not high. This is actually pretty good for a bodybuilder eating a ton of protein. I've seen BUN levels of 27, 29, 32.
Absolutely.
Right? Quite high. These are super high protein diets, which is completely unnecessary. Well, one more thing about the creatine kinase. If you take a week off and you see your liver enzymes don't come down, which indicates an issue in the liver, but your creatine kinase came down by 40%, 50%, then you know exactly that it's a liver-related issue because creatine kinase will be like 2,000 to 5,000 in hard training athletes.
And that's such a good point, Steve. So, like, if you're doing creatine kinase, that's a way to tell you how much muscle you've really destroyed, because that's really affected by working out.
It's a badge of honor,
and actually,
for
Steve,
bodybuilders.
But Steve, you remember, I think the second blood test he sent, this creatine kinase was very high, and I think poor guy, he probably didn't know what it was. He probably just thought, shit, something's wrong, you know.
Should have had a heart attack.
Yeah. But as I mentioned, But okay, so then the lipids again, his LDL here is only 105. And he doesn't take any protective medications for this. And his HDL was still 55. I mean, some people's HDL are really being, low. Triglycerides also, not too high, 60. Well, of course, he's obviously low body fat, but still, this is like a pretty... I realized he was genetically protected from heart disease a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. The triglycerides are a little bit on the higher side for an athlete. Most athletes would have a triglyceride of 35 to 45. So I would say this is a little bit high for an athlete that's physically active and hopefully does his daily cardio. So, but again, it could be a moment in time, right? Did he fast for the blood work, or did he have if he's in the off season, like, his diet is still pretty good year round, but right, let's say you do your blood work, it's scheduled on a Sunday and you had a Saturday cheat meal, then your triglycerides will be a little bit elevated. So
true. Yeah.
Moment in time. Yeah.
Well, bro, listen to this, guys. I didn't tell you guys about this. I have a very close friend from around the world, different country. He recently did a blood test, and he told me, "Hey, what biomarker should I test?" So I gave him a list, and he came back with triglycerides, bro, of 700. 700, man. And I was like, "What the fuck?" So then I go to his cholesterol section. His LDL is like 130. It's not calculated. You can't calculate LDL when the triglyceride is that high. It's not even possible. But his ApoeB was normal. I mean, things were normal. The cholesterol metrics all normal, and then triglyceride 700. He had familial hypertriglyceridemia. Normal. Interestingly, guys, that triglyceridemia is not that dangerous because most of the fat is actually carried on these big chylomicron particles that have difficulty getting lodged in the arterial wall. So if it's the right hypertriglyceridemia, it's not that dangerous. But anyway, real quick here, just the last thing.
Did you have some figs or dates? Like
I asked him, "What did you eat yesterday? What did you eat? A cow? I don't know. You ate a stack of buttery last night. I don't know what he did." Anyway, so
he needs some. Derek sent this guy some Gorilla AR. It will get it down, right? The carnitine will just help to absorb all the triglycerides into the muscle cell.
Actually, carnitine is one thing we didn't recommend for this guy that we should for sure. So here we gave him a suggestion for our next blood test. For the liver, we said ALT, AST. Don't forget ALP. We want the albumin and bilirubin also. Albumin sort of represents the function of your liver, whereas bilirubin can be involved in liver pathologies. The alpha fetoprotein is the most reliable liver cancer marker. And then for kidneys, we said...
one recommendation about the ferritin. So maybe can you add this?
It's a good idea.
It's a PDF, right?
I'll add it right after. Don't worry.
Please recommend the ferritin, because that's another marker for liver inflammation, which is particularly elevated in cases of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And for the guys that eat a lot of beef, for example, right, you have to be particularly attentive to the ferritin and the serum iron levels, because you're influxing so much hema iron, which is highly bioavailable. So in my case, I was following a pescatarian diet with high fat, but my ferritin was still high. And then I looked at that. I stopped the vertical diet a long time ago. So my iron intake is not that significant. So my ferritin shouldn't be this high. And this also led me to this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Wow. Interesting.
So it will be like 350, 400, like 20% out of the reference range.
So I actually thought that he must be eating so much meat that there's no point testing it. That's why I was like, there's going to be too much iron.
So you check his diet. Like if he's following a heavy meat diet, a lot of beef, right, for the creatine and the vitamin B12, which I think he's deficient also, then it might mean that if he's following a pescatarian diet but his ferritin is high, then non-alcoholic fatty liver disease might be present, judging by his elevated triglycerides and elevated liver enzymes.
Oh yeah, I definitely believe so. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. So just to show the biomarkers for kidneys, we wanted him to calculate EGFR based on creatinine and cyastatin C. Keep in mind, the EGFR is a calculation of your kidney filtration rate over time, and it just depends on what you're calculating coming out of your kidney. So cyastatin C, creatinine, that way cyastatin C is not affected by muscle damage. And then symmetric dimethylarginine as a third biomarker to triangulate with. I didn't want to ask him. Keep in mind, guys, I was trying not to ask for too many biomarkers. We were trying to avoid him being bogged down by it. So we just did C-reactive protein, neutrophils, lymphocytes there. He never tested C-reactive protein in his life. And then homocysteine never tested in his life. Uric acid he's never tested. ADME never tested. We tested for lipoprotein little a, which is a independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease that some people in the population. Derek's Merrick Health, frequently, I think almost for everybody, they tested at least once, which is one of the most impressive things I've seen from Merrick Health. By the way, I don't work for Merrick Health and I'm not affiliated. I'm just like really impressed with the quality there. So we checked out the lipoprotein A, then red cell distribution width was a problem, as Steve and I will talk in a bit, hematocrit and hemoglobin. Why did we talk about this here? We didn't go over it actually.
No, just suggestions.
In his initial blood test, there was a little bit of a low hemoglobin and hematocrit, and we were wondering what's going on, but we waited to comment until we got the next one. We asked for D-dimer, couldn't get it, or wasn't able to. HbA1c is a 3-month average of blood sugar levels in red blood cells, gives you sort of an average, but it doesn't mean you're insulin resistant, it just means how much glucose you have running around your blood, and the fasting glucose.
It's good to do when you're on a decent dose of growth hormone year round, right? To maintain the size that's required at this high level of competition.
Actually, I wanted to briefly ask you guys about this. Do you guys recommend like wearable technologies to people ever? And if you do, which ones are your favorite wearable technologies? Like what I mean to say is like the Aura. Oh, I don't have it. So recently, today, I think they sent me an email. The Aura ring that Peter Attia owns, they released a new edition. And this
wait, did you say that he owns as in the product, or he's an investor?
Investor. He invests in a lot of products. Yeah, absolutely. He's a McKinsey guy. He's a former McKinsey analyst there.
Dude, Aura Ring, I asked them if I could be an affiliate a couple of years ago, and they said no. So I have a...
Bro, listen to this. I messaged the company that does the cooling of the beds, and I was like, hey, can you send me one of these cooling systems so I can try it out? And if I like it, I'll recommend your company. I only recommend companies that I like. They're like, no, we don't do that. We could give you a like 20%, 30% discount. I was like, but I heard Peter Attia on his podcast say he got it for free. So I was like, but there's another guy who got it for free. Why can't I get it for free? Then they're like, no, that's never happened before. And I was like, okay. And then they like gave it to me 50% off. So I bought it. After I bought it, I realized, to be honest, I don't care. I'm like, it was a piece of crap device. I was like, what the fuck? This thing doesn't cool me, bro.
This is the chili pad?
Useless. They overrated the hell out of that thing, bro. You try it, you're like, is it a little bit colder? I don't know. So anyway, it's just because I just get hot a lot. So I was like, anyway, I bought it. Then afterwards, I was talking to them because they still wanted me to sponsor them. I said, I know Peter Attia got it for free. They're like, oh, he did get it for free. He owns part of the company, or he's friends with the guy, so he did get it for free.
So it's funny stuff.
Yeah, so sometimes you don't have the connections. But the Aura Ring, I bought it 3 times now. I love the device for wearing at night, especially while I sleep. The other device I want to mention, I feel is very valuable, is the Dexcom. The Dexcom, which Peter Attia was also talking about on the recent podcast with Rogan. I wore a Dexcom for a year. I don't know if you guys know that. So I wore a Dexcom. That one was less, apparently way less easy to use and wear than the current one. But bro, honestly, it was worth it. It was so informative. I would see my glucose spike when I get stressed out during the day. I would be surprised because my fasting insulin was good. But then I would eat a meal 2 hours later. I would still have high glucose. This is the time I was lifting weights a lot. I was surprised. So I learned a lot of stuff from it. So it was one of the topics I wanted to ask.
Let me see if I can get you guys this thing. It's called a BioStrap, and it's what Merrick Health is probably going to be using in place of. It's going to have more informative metrics than the Aura Ring or the Whoop or anything. And it's like, it's unreleased to the public yet, but we're working on it. And it's, I don't want to give away too many details, but let me know if you guys are interested, because this is the thing I'm mainly using right now.
Hook me up. My wrist is ready.
My wrist is ready. Honestly, this is one of the biggest advantages we have in this modern age, is that we can get biological information whenever we want it, I just thought to mention that because we were looking through these biomarkers. But anyway, we asked for the TSH. His TSH was low last time, probably because he takes thyroid medication sometimes. His PSA, I don't think he's ever tested that. I would have assumed he would have an elevated PSA because his prostate would have grown after all these years of bodybuilding. And then we checked his hormones, but only because he was interested in
the enlarged prostate is very uncommon in bodybuilding.
Bodybuilders?
Yeah, very uncommon. I've seen it, but it's very you would expect from all the DHTs and the androgens that we take, but elevated or enlarged prostates, very uncommon.
Really?
It's there's a saturation point where more androgens don't cause any additional hypertrophy. So it's like, and the threshold value of androgenic signaling that causes like maximal prostate stimulation is a lot lower than you'd think. It's like within endogenous limits, I believe.
I think partially it's because you downregulate the HPTA, and there's an androgen binding protein which delivers androgen from the testicles to the prostate, right? In a normal functioning HPTA. And when you downregulate that, you have less delivery through that pathway, which is similar to the 6-hormone binding globulin. So now the androgens only come from the peripheral tissue, right? Being the exogenous hormones. So that's a suspect. And of course, most people control their estrogen, which also has a regulatory role in prostate cancers. So it could be something to say for that. So it's very rare that I see an enlarged prostate. Most of the time when I see an enlarged prostate, it's with TRT guys. They just started TRT and they've been in a stressful situation for decades because their business is so demanding.
Yeah, I'm paranoid about prostate because my father developed that benign prostatic hyperplasia. Right. Man, you don't want to get that stuff. That's hectic.
But anyway, but he was a high stress individual also, right?
I think he was a high DHT, high testosterone individual. Probably. Yeah. But anyway, so last thing is we had a couple of cancer antigens we asked to be tested. I don't know if they were, but these are, you guys can see this on my website. I have a list of biomarkers. These are the most reliable cancer markers, the PSAC. There's one other one that's not here. Anyway, so we gave him some notes about scanning. We asked for a kidney scan, liver ultrasound, cardiac fMRI, but we didn't push him to do this yet because it's a little bit difficult. We want to do probably an EKG, as Derek was mentioning, and some other things first.
For anybody, just a interjection. If your country doesn't allow you to do these scans, save the money and go to Dubai or Thailand, where you can just pay out of pocket. Dubai or Thailand, you just fly there for medical tourism. You contact a doctor well in advance to one of the renowned clinics. There are many in Dubai and Thailand. And just say, listen, I'm there for 2 weeks. I want all these tests done. Send me a proposal and book me in. Because here you can just do it. I did all of my organ imaging just with one consultation. Right? And some of them you can just walk in and say, hey, listen, I want an ultrasound of all of my organs. And they'll do it within 30 minutes.
Yeah, you're so right. But in Dubai, you guys want to check out Dubai Healthcare City. That's the area where the medical tourism is. I actually was pitched by the CEO when I graduated from college to work at the Dubai Healthcare City. It was really interesting. I graduated from college. I received a phone call from my phone, and the guy called me. I was like, who are you? He was like, I'm the CEO of this place. I want to hire you. I was like, oh, this is so crazy. How did you find me? literally. Anyway, but then there's that. In Dubai, there's a hospital called American Hospital of Dubai, owned by the Gharia family. It's a very reliable place. And in Abu Dhabi, close by an hour away, you have the Cleveland Clinic from America. So you have all those opportunities there, hopefully.
Yeah. So for the guys that are not don't have access to American Health because they're not in the States, I'd consider moving to another country. You might be off cheaper and get serviced way faster by booking a holiday. And just doing all your medical tourism there. You get it done in the first week, and then the rest of the time that you're there, you just enjoy yourself, unless you get some bad news. But then at least you're also in a place where you can get it resolved pretty fast. Yeah.
So here we made a brief, like we tried to keep it really simple about the liver fat, because we still didn't see detailed metrics, but we know that he has a fatty liver of some kind. There's inflammation with AST. So we mentioned fasting. That's how you actually lose the fat. And then we mentioned diet, avoiding fructose. He doesn't drink or anything else. So the only toxic thing is probably eating maybe to the liver, maybe fructose. And then we mentioned choline, because choline is a vitamin. Without choline, anybody will develop fatty liver disease. I know Derek doesn't like this hydrophilic CDP. Derek hates this, the audience.
But it's for cognition, right? But
Derek is it's not for Derek disagrees. He's like, there's no reason to use this thing. It's not bioavailable. It's not nothing. It's not lipid.
No, it's just the bang for your buck. Like a gram of CDP choline is so much more expensive, and it's less efficacious in a mental context.
But you know,
that's what I say it.
But really, Derek, I really do believe that hydrophilic and lipophilic cholines act differently in the body. So I think there's a value to add like phosphatidylcholine or something. But anyway, so we also mentioned vitamin E here, because vitamin E, interestingly, with fatty liver disease and NASH, it's one of the most evidenced methods. The other method is Udca. And a couple but vitamin E is very useful for the liver. Then we mentioned
if you go to livertalks.com or LiverTalks is a subsidiary of PubMed. where all the liver articles are kind of classified. Right? You can just search through it, just liver specific. I've got that whole website memorized at this point. So you'll find a lot of articles combining vitamin E with Udca, for example, not with tudca, because that is not FDA approved or researched in clinical settings as much. But tudca is certainly more effective. So that's why you recommend it, right, on the reducing inflammation, 500 milligrams of tudca. And it makes a significant difference. And with the vitamin E, you get the mixed tocopherols and tocotrienols, because it's not exactly studies if the tocotrienols are more effective or the tocopherols are more effective in the resolvement of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So just get the mixed ones.
Absolutely, we should comment on that. So the reason why tudca is not an approved FDA-approved medication in the U.S. is because it just happens to not be. They just happen to choose Udca first. In comparison trials, and I've went into really a lot of detail. I'm making a video on this subject about bile acids, Udca versus tudca, how they work, how they affect various parts of our health. Tudca, honestly, is most often superior. It's taurine conjugated Udca. A lot of the Udca ends up taurine conjugated anyway, but it seems to be metabolized better, and in some cases, Udca performs better in isolated, like in vitro studies, but in vivo studies, I think tudca may be superior. Now, this is the problem. Guys, good you brought this up. The problem is that we can't trust the tudca supplements. They're not third-party reviewed. No. And literally, Derek, last night we were chatting together, and Derek's like, hey guys, should I make because we were talking about tudca. He's like, should I make a tudca product? I wanted to talk to you about this today, Derek. I wish you would make it, please, for me, because I can't trust it.
For me too.
I'm literally using Udca, pharmaceutical Udca, because I just don't know if the tudca works that I have. And
I was using a brand which seems to be discontinued their tudca now, so it's unavailable. So I did a trial on Udca, 3,000 milligrams per day, which improved my liver enzymes a bit. And then I switched to 15 or 2,000 milligrams tudca, and that improved it significantly. But then later on, I used the same brand before they discontinued it from their product line, and it didn't work. It didn't change anything. So now I'm without tudca for a while, and so I'm Derek. I need you to save my liver health, bro.
Derek, honestly, I don't know if there are athletes who eat 6 times a day that, unless they have a disease that we don't know about, that shouldn't take tudca. Honestly, it's that helpful for liver health. It's not it is an antioxidant, but it's so important for bile duct health. But it actually dissolves gallstones, for God's sake. If you take Udca at 1.2 to 1.5 grams a day, within a year it dissolves gallstones in people with gallstones, or within 6 months. It has so many great effects, and having astragalus and citrus bergamot and tudca is like the three musketeers of.
Yeah, exactly. That's the golden triangle. So the good thing also, if you're eating a ton of food and you take tudca, it improves food passing the stool, because it lubricates, right? So, you still have to wipe a ton of times because you're going to the bathroom multiple times, but at least this food doesn't sit in your stomach; it's just passing through.
Yeah.
So remind me after the show, and I'll get it going.
Awesome.
Yes.
So just a quick summary: a NAC is an antioxidant. The liver, oxidative stress causes the liver to end up inflamed with the high AST. So the more you relieve stress as it's going on, by the way, the way we can think about it for the audience, oxidative stress, think about it like a lot of cars on a highway. When cars move a lot, they cause pollution. Our cells, when they act a lot, they cause like oxidative stress that has to be neutralized. And the liver is always working for these guys that eat 6 times a day. It's constantly working and having difficulty. So the idea here was the tudca for the bile ducts and for that kind of function. The EPA as a genetic anti-inflammatory, it modulates anti-inflammatory gene transcription. NAC is an antioxidant like tudca, but also donates a cysteine for the synthesis of glutathione, your body's main antioxidant. Vitamin C, I don't know how useful it is for the liver, to be honest with you. I just take it. This is my.
I just for anabolism, I would raise that to 1 gram vitamin C with each meal, because it contributes to.
3 times a day.
Yeah. So this is 3 times a day, right?
Yeah,
so
you're right. Each meal would be smarter. 5. It's the max.
So I've been doing like 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C with each meal for years now, because it acts as a collagen donor in collagen synthesis.
Interesting.
So. Right, so people say vitamin C is an antioxidant, it makes you less anabolic, which actually been studied and showed that it had no ill effect in muscle accrual or strength. It just reduces the post-exercise antioxidant or stress response a little bit, but it has no negative effect on overall strength or muscle tissue accrual. But I do all this full range of motion exercises, right? And people say, oh, my elbows hurt, my knees hurt when you're doing this. I've been on collagen supplements and vitamin C for almost a decade.
Yeah.
And I can do full range of motion without any pain. right, with heavy ass weights.
For anybody saying that, hey, you're gonna screw up your gains because you're taking vitamin C, hey, bro, if you're on steroids, you have so much inflammation when you go to the gym. You're not just neutralizing all that. Do you think that one vitamin C pill just killed all the inflammation?
Yeah.
Unless you work out, you don't work out properly. But if you work out properly and you're strong, you're gonna be inflamed. You just might have less damage, I think, if you have free radical scavenger.
I always say to not put it in pre-workouts just for that reason, but it's like ultimately
for naturals it might be different.
Yeah, and above and beyond that, it's just like I don't find it to be a useful like acute performance metric increasing ingredient when you could otherwise just use it separately and like modulate your dose accordingly. So I've just never put it in a pre, but I have vitamin C every day too. I just am cognizant of, I guess the timing is probably irrelevant if I'm on TRT, but I mean, yeah.
I put 1 gram of vitamin C with each meal, including the pre-workout shakes or post-workout shakes with all of my athletes. And nobody ever complained about losing strength. And I coached a decent amount of naturals, right? And I took it out for a while to see if it made any difference. No difference.
Well, if it was true, these guys injecting the glutathione, 200 milligrams would be screwing themselves too, you know? So they're not.
Yeah. So pick your poison.
Before we get to the butyric acid, so 3 grams of EPA 3 times per day. We're looking at 9 grams of total EPA with 0 DHA is the recommendation.
Yeah. Well, so far, maybe he should have DHA for the long term for his health. But I was just trying to lower. I was thinking about the inflammation of the liver in the short term, and maybe the dose was a little. I don't think that he's at risk of like having because sometimes people get lightheaded when they use too much of it. I don't think he's at risk of that. But you're right.
I take like 5 grams of EPA per day. 6 grams of EPA.
What's the reduced trial dose? 6.
4. But 4? Sorry, guys, I should make an excuse for this thing. We made this before we got the next one. Yeah, and so we didn't actually edit it. We need to edit it a little bit. But later we saw something about his hematocrit and hemoglobin. I think Derek's right. Just maybe 1-3 times a day, and then escalate up if there's no issue. Right. And the butyric acid is it's a short chain fatty acid that neutralizes damage in the stress in the liver. Very good also for the microbiome, and it's HDAC inhibitor.
All right, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. You take it away with the ezetimibe.
Sure. So
that's your thing.
Briefly here, Derek,
quick side tangent from the video to bring you today's sponsor. This is Seed Synbiotic. This is the daily pre and probiotic 2-in-1 capsule I use to support gut health, gut permeability, structural integrity of the gut microbiome, the gut-brain axis, etc. There is not a lot of clear literature to support, certain kinds of strains. And ultimately, before Seed, I was kind of just like taking shots in the dark, buying random stuff. To be honest, I would go look at the highest rated probiotic or the one that had names I was familiar with. But there was no company really going out there to dig into the literature and parse out which strains actually had efficacy in practical application in humans as opposed to in like a dying rat or something. So for me, like one of the first actual research-backed companies obviously kind of reinforced their credibility in my eyes and made me a bit more confident in my decisions. So the first time I heard about them was actually on a podcast a few years ago. It's a biohacking podcast, and the owner of Seed was kind of just like breaking down what separates them from other companies, what their product offers that others don't, the 2-in-1 via cap delivery technology, not degrading during transit, why their strains are chosen, the literature to support the efficacy of their strains and whatnot. I was like, sounds pretty goddamn good to me, given that this is an area that is very obscure, very unexplored, and frankly, most people just don't understand it. So for me, at this point, I'm at the point now where anything I only have such a limited amount of brain capacity to store information. So if there's an area of research that I'm totally foreign to, or relatively foreign to, and somebody's already compiled all the data for me, I'm all ears, and I will probably, just take their suggestions and run with it oftentimes. So for me, the first company to actually dig into the literature and create like a science-backed synbiotic that's a pre and probiotic, I was like, okay, this makes it idiot proof for me because I don't have to go buy like random strains. It's all just like all in one, gut health support, let's go. So I went to buy it, and it wasn't shipping to Canada at the time. This was a few years back. And fortunately, now it is available in Canada as well as in other countries. So for me, I now have access to it, which is awesome. And they have since integrated with the channel and are supporting me now, which is kind of wild because this is something that I otherwise would have been spending my money on anyways. So like for me, this is a perfect opportunity to integrate a company that I saw as, had therapeutic promise and merit for implementation in a high quality supplementation regimen. So the product itself is comprised of 24 clinically and scientifically studied strains, and it is delivered every month in a infinitely refillable, like this jar is, a sustainable way to go about refilling your stuff with compostable, biodegradable, and recyclable packaging. You basically just refill into this glass thing, and you get rid of the packaging. And ultimately, like for me, above and beyond all the little, like bells and whistles of the compostable stuff and blah, blah, blah. Like for me, I'm just like, this is the product, like what's the efficacy? Is this something that is going to help support gut-brain axis function and, avoid, leaky gut or anything of this nature that like ultimately, I just want to idiot-proof for me. So as I dug into it, I obviously was under the impression initially that most people are that this is just to prevent like, oh, you have diarrhea or something, like use this. But it goes above and beyond that. There are systemic health effects above and beyond just the basics that you would perceive from digestive. So it is the first in a pipeline of clinically studied next-gen products, and it is a symbiotic to be specific, not a probiotic. It is a probiotic and prebiotic all in one. So it supports gastrointestinal health as you'd expect, maintain regularity, ease bloating, alleviate occasional constipation, but also gut barrier integrity, maintains healthy gut barrier function and integrity. So again, I'm sure you've heard of the leaky gut issues and autoimmune attacks on the body that are becoming more and more regular nowadays, and having a structurally sound and impermeable, high integrity structural foundation of your gut microbiome is obviously imperative nowadays with a lot of the stuff going on. Gut immune function supports healthy gut immune function and crosstalk between immune and intestinal cells. Cardiovascular health promotes heart health, supports healthy intestinal recycling of cholesterol and bile. Dermatological health supports healthy skin and micronutrient synthesis. Something that is worth highlighting for those in the fitness industry especially. So above and beyond the, not being stuck on a toilet or, having disasters on the toilet and avoiding, the issues that come along with a compromised gut, actually absorbing your nutrients properly. This is something a lot of people don't even think of. They just think once they ingest their food, that's it. Everything gets assimilated and there's no, ifs, ands, or buts, and then you dump out the toxins essentially. When in reality, sometimes you will not absorb the micronutrients. Oftentimes things go completely unassimilated because your body and your gut microbiome simply cannot absorb it, or you are, low on stomach acid, or, there's a myriad of different reasons, but ultimately supporting micronutrient synthesis is something I think that needs to be highlighted with more importance in the future. So it's great to see something that addresses that and may actually support it to a significant extent. Supports folate vitamin B9 production via intestinal synthesis of bioactive forms of folate. So as far as what it's comprised of, 24 strain, broad spectrum pro and prebiotic formulated for digestive, gut immunity, and additional systemic benefits, which I just mentioned a second ago, and it is comprised of 53.6 billion active fluorescent units. And it utilizes a unique 2-in-1 ViaCap delivery technology, which is basically a capsule in a capsule. And this protects against stomach acid, digestive enzymes, bile salts for viability through digestion. And this means that the live probiotics will actually make it to the end of the small intestine for delivery into the colon. And this is something that is unique to this company as far as I know. And it is also something that the development process by which they underwent allows them to ship and not undergo significant degradation during transit, which is a huge limitation of other companies whereby they have to ship it on ice, or ultimately by the time it gets to you in a different country, especially if you're in Canada, like I am, by the time it gets to you, it may have lost complete potency to a point that it's no longer representative of the parent structural compounds to begin with. Like the actual pro and prebiotics are essentially degraded into nothingness, and the product is useless by the time it reaches you. So having this unique preparation / format for delivery and having strains that have been tested at ambient temperature for long spans of time to ensure that they do not undergo significant degradation ensures the stability of the product and that you are actually getting the efficacy out of it once it actually reaches your door, as opposed to other products. Frankly, it's kind of ambiguous what you're actually getting by the time it gets to you. So for me, this is the go-to synbiotic on the market right now. And it's cool that they reached out to me to support what I'm doing. And obviously I only bring products into these integrations on my channel that I either think have, I don't know, like therapeutic promise, if they have, actual, health supporting benefits, or, performance benefits, or are a high quality product that I've otherwise spent my own money on in the past. Stuff like that. There's obviously a pre-qualifying kind of list of attributes I look for, and is why I don't do a huge amount of just random smorgasbord. That's not even a word, smorgasbord. A big array of different sponsorship integrations with random companies. I'm pretty selective about who I work with. So anyways, if you want to support me and support Seed, who obviously saw potential in my channel and wanted to work with me, it's much appreciated, by the way. Obviously, having a company that I actually spent my own money on their stuff before, working with me directly now. Get 15% off your first month supply of Seed's Daily Synbiotic by clicking the link in the description box below and using code Derek at checkout. So check them out if you're interested in adding the same synbiotic I use into your daily regimen. And obviously every purchase is, very much appreciated, helps support the growth of the channel. So thank you, Seed, for sponsoring the video, and back to our regularly scheduled programming.
I mentioned the ezetimibe because he was slightly high on the lipids, if you remember. And then the canagliflozin, I went out of the way and mentioned this, but I don't know if he needs it. I was just like, oh, maybe you can get this in time. And I would also consider valsartan. We didn't know his blood pressure yet. And we considered that I wrote 10 milligram tablets of nebivolol because you could cut them up, And we mentioned that, but later, to be honest, because he's competing soon, I was averse to this. Because
in terms of inhibiting fat loss in some aspect?
In terms of potentially lowering his exercise performance, I didn't know if it would or not, And he only has a few months till a very important competition, so I left that out for the time being. And then this section, guys, just because, and we should talk about this, Derek, because people maybe are wondering why we have a post-psychotherapy section. It's the reason is because some bodybuilders think that in order to maintain the health of their fertility, in order to maintain their fertility and their health, that they need to clean out for a month. And Derek and I explained to the client, the athlete, that maybe stopping for a month is useful, mainly in terms of resensitizing yourself to the androgens. But in terms of your health, it actually might be slightly unhealthy because the major change in water around your heart and so on, just flipping that. And the second thing is we pointed out, if you're not, first of all, you're not going to be if you show up with some testosterone level for a week, it doesn't really make a difference. You could protect that with a low dose HCG all year round, except around competitions or whatever. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah. So I think the PCT thing, ultimately, if this is if you're not, there are some athletes that do use anabolics for acute performance outcomes, and they come off to clear drug tests, and they do, events that otherwise don't require them to sustain high body weights year round, essentially. Those individuals, maybe coming off because you're actually using it for one specific application in an athletic context, not to build a physique that you're trying to maintain year round. So for a bodybuilder who knows you're going to be exposing yourself to blast after blast after blast, although in increments of maybe 4 months at a time, separated by a handful of months between, eventually you're going to get to a point where you're exposing yourself to so much shit again, your HPTA perpetually, unless you're manually keeping it up. Even if you get your HPTA back up in between, the only purpose of that, I think, with the HCG is to keep your balls functioning, and that's great. But to transiently get a representation of good looking blood work on a piece of paper by crashing your fucking hormones and exposing your body to huge amounts of stress by depriving yourself of androgens, depriving yourself of estrogen, inducing massive amounts of cardio and neurotoxicity, all kinds of stress from a vastly stressful aspect of having giant aberrations in your body weight, your hematology metrics, water retention, etc. I feel it would just make way more sense to be on a cruise of something that is baseline hormone replacement. And then if you want to maintain your HPTA function, that's where you have either whatever you deem appropriate, but an HCG in general is kind of the easiest, application for at least maintaining Leydig cell stimulation for maintaining ball function, more or less. So I don't think that clearing the strategy of bodybuilders clearing hormones out of their system, crashing, getting a blood test, and making them feel good about themselves because their HDL is now above range again. And then being like, oh, look, my fucking testosterone is only like 250 and my HDL looks good again. But I just like shit on my body from a stress aspect. And now let's get on all the shit again. That fluctuating disparity between that like 8-week time frame, like you would have been way better just staying on HRT. And like, if you want your balls, HCG while you're doing that. It's kind of like how I would see it.
I think in the case of this subject, it might be because he's limited in his capability to do blood work. And if he goes on his medical records, he doesn't want it to be too bad.
No.
Like I can see the logical conclusion where if I'm on drugs for this long, there's got to be some time where I'm off of drugs. Go ahead.
No, I was just talking. We're talking about PCT, not like blood work when you're off. But we're talking about, do you need a PCT every year when you take your 1 month break where you get off and test your stuff? Should you do a PCT? Is it valuable? And we were saying that our client was interested in doing a PCT, and we're just. And one thing you mentioned, Derek, which is really critical, just for the audience to know, we're not pulling this stuff out of like thin air. There are literally papers in which academics, actually medical doctor PhDs, say that they theorize that anabolic steroid users are causing themselves more cardiovascular harm by going on and off cycle because of massive changes.
Well, the fluctuation, especially like when you come off, you taper, right? It's kind of self-tapering drugs, so your weight comes down slowly. But when you come back on, it just moons up because the muscle memory and the glycogen and the nitrogen and all that retention, right? I gained like 10 kilos in 4 weeks, right? And that's on a cookie cutter TRT plus dose, like 280 milligrams a week. So imagine if he goes from a normal being completely bottomed out testosterone levels for a month or two, and then goes on a pre-contest cycle 16 weeks out. It's such a huge fluctuation, and it's better just to stay on TRT to keep your body weight up and stable.
After the competition, when they do that rebound and they gain, like some guys gain, I would have been, if I was a bodybuilder, I would have been stupid. Like I would have gained 40. I'm that type of guy.
But at his level, he doesn't do that.
No, he doesn't. Sure. Our guy doesn't do that. But I'm saying there are other guys that do that stuff, gain 20, 40
amateurs.
pounds. Just keep
people
in mind.
Die from that.
That's worse for the heart than even the going off the steroids initially.
I know people who died from that.
Oh, really?
They do the Mr. Thailand here, and then they get recruited into the national team, and they're like, okay, I'm going to be competing for months now, and they start eating. And they gained 30 kilos. So
and
like
60,
70 pounds.
From heart failure?
Yeah, they died from heart failure. Yeah.
And also when you're trying to remove negative feedback to your HPTA and do your whole like PCT, like think of all the drugs you were on going into the contest and then the clearance of those hormones to remove negative feedback and you using SERMs like Clomid, Novadex, etc. It's not like those drugs are harm-free too. So not only are you crashing your system, but then you're exposing yourself to additional toxic drugs in some capacity to pseudo restore fertility that you otherwise like didn't even need to do to begin with, because you still have hormones clearing out of your system that are causing negative feedback through progestogenic signaling, androgenic signaling, estrogen receptor activation, whatever. You have like these residual hormones that, do you think in 4 weeks like everything's fucking gone?
No, it takes 8 weeks.
Yeah, Neil on the head is always like, this is actually, we were talking about this with him, that because they go to shorter esters, we'll see the cycle later, but you go to shorter esters as the competition comes, but there was some Cisternino that was there like 6 weeks before, and that has a little bit trailing in, because we know that even enanthate only saturates after 6 weeks in experience on blood tests. Right. So there was something going on. I mentioned that to him also, but it's even worse than that there, because they're, just keep in mind the audience, our guy is like a very intelligent person, but the thing is that there's misinformation in the community. So sometimes people think that if I go off cycle for 1 month and I use HCG only that whole month, and I use Clomid and Novadex that whole month, and then do a blood test on the 30th day and go back on cycle, you didn't wake anything up, bro. Your HCG, they're inhibiting, your LH was still 1 the whole time. You just didn't realize it. You just produced testosterone from your balls and then stopped.
PCT for most people is at least 6 months endeavor. You need to let the hormones clear. It takes 6 to 8 weeks, right? Depending on what you used. Then you have your post-cycle therapy. If you were on cycle for years, the post-cycle therapy might be 8 weeks in duration, right? A couple of weeks of ACG, and then the enclomiphene and the raloxifene or tamoxifen taper down over 4 to 6 weeks. Then you're drug-free. Now you need to wait at least 3 months to do your semen analysis. Ideally 6 months. It took me 6 months to get my fertility back. So my PCT took 9 months in duration.
Yeah,
9
like when you
months.
see actual
That's
guys
your
who
whole
are
competition.
who have been blasting and cruising for years on end, like Steve and Pete Rubish, like go look at their logs for how long it took them to get like actual true endogenous function back, not supported by artificial means and shit. Like, sure, maybe use those things in between to get to that point. But I mean, the point where you were supporting it just by your normal LH and FSH production and everything was working, maybe not at an optimal level, but it's like functioning and you're like truly natural and things are truly working through your HPTA fully. That's like half a year, dude, not 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is just like, I don't know. I feel it's like a comfort thing. Like, oh, everything looks better transiently on paper, but it's actually more stressful overall.
That's what these gurus recommend. And it's right.
Guys,
So he got misinformed for sure, right? Over the years that he was being instructed. But it's not uniquely to that coach. It seems to be the common knowledge for most coaches. Oh, you go off for a month, you do the NAFLD and Clomid, and then you go back on cycle. Dude.
I just find it interesting that they like NAFLD and Clomid, both. Not an AI, but two SERMs. One that's less effective in the brain, NAFLD. Clomid that's more effective and kills your mood, but do both. And okay, guys, just to explain why I'm frustrated, because we talk about this on the podcast every so often. I get awesome consultations from people. Sometimes they're like, "Hey, listen, I know my luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone are not active." They know the details of how this thing works, and they're learning. But let's repeat it again, just in case. So, why was I saying that HCG with the NAFLD and Clomid might be weird? The idea is this: if you took HCG all year, like 250 units twice a week, like Steve recommends for people to keep the balls alive, your balls are alive. So there's no reason to replace the signal from your brain to your balls to check if they work for a month. They are working. They were working the whole time.
Right.
If you didn't use HCG all year and you only use it that 1 month, you're not going to recover anything in your balls. They're atrophying the whole year. Cells are dying. You might wake them up a bit. Things have died. So that's another, for most people. I mean, maybe some people don't have shrinkage.
Yeah, it depends on your androgen load. So yeah.
But we're talking about progesterogenic compounds here and stuff like that.
That's like fertility, infertility, in a injectable infertility, basically.
That's true. But so the idea is, like, ideally you'd be using HCG all year, and then when you go off the HCG, that if you wanted to, you go off that month, you'd modulate estrogen so that your brain starts luteinizing hormone because your balls already work. You know, so that was just my point. Basically, the better solution would be to use HCG all year. And if you ever do want to go off fully, you do it to upregulate your androgen receptors, probably. And you keep your health all year, so you don't have to put your head in the sand and then check once a year.
I would just, for most people, just cruise and use ACG during that period. Of course, ACG is not so effective when you combine it with heavy dosages and progestogenic trenbolone and nandrolone or ment, right, which is getting increasingly popular. In that case, it doesn't really do much, in my opinion. But if you at least have a bridging period where you do test and ACG,
no, it does something.
Should allow you to clean out.
It still does something.
Then it does something for sure.
Like, what I mean to say is, like, just for the audience who never tried this, if I'm very resistant to DECA, I mean, like, sensitive to DECA. For me, it's like horrible. If I'm using HCG with DECA, maybe I'll retain half of the gonadal size that I would have normally lost. I'll still lose a bit. But I'll retain a bit, and that just means you're keeping some integrity of the cells, I think.
Okay, that's good. Yeah,
I hope so. But anyway, we went through that. So here are the findings we got from the third blood test. The blood test we actually asked from the athlete. So we went through his kidney. Maybe we should go through the summary. Maybe not. Let's go through the detailed notes. First of all, he didn't get the neutrophils and lymphocytes this time. If you guys remember, last time it was below 2, so we weren't too concerned about it. His CRP was 1.4 milligrams per liter while on cycle. Bro, I wish this happened to me.
This was a high sensitivity test, right?
Yes, it was a high sensitivity series CRP.
Let me check.
So
ultra sensitive. Yep.
I was shocked by this. I was so happy because I thought, maybe he has maybe his lipids are low, but maybe he has inflammation, and this is some genetic protection against autoimmune dysfunction he has.
Yeah, or he only sticks to pharmaceutical grade and avoids those underground labs, which I've been carefully mentioning over the last couple of years to avoid.
Of course, yeah. Thank God for that. You really saved a lot of people's health. No, it's one of the biggest contributions for sure. So then we go to the blood section. This is where it gets really mysterious, guys. So his red blood cell distribution width is 17. Every time you go 1% above, I think 12, you have a massive increase in risk for mortality. There's a lot of reasons the red blood cell width could be high like that. Just to explain, that means there's variance in the sizes of the red blood cells in the stream, meaning the kidney or is erythropoietic trying to produce red blood cells, but they maybe not maturing, or they might be dying along the way from inflammation, for example. But he doesn't have much inflammation from what we can see. So we saw the red blood cell distribution with, I don't know if we wrote here as hemoglobin and hematocrit.
No, I wrote it in a voice note. So with the red cell distribution it's very common in bodybuilders who frequently donate blood. Because every time they donate blood, they lose a little bit of iron.
That's the thing. He doesn't.
Yeah, so they lose a little bit of iron. So he doesn't donate often. Okay.
No, but you mentioned that just for people though. Sorry to interrupt.
Right. So then it could be a vitamin B9 or B12 deficiency. It's just also linked to red cell distribution with. And of course, when you train a lot and you eat a lot of carbohydrates, if you're not supplementing your B vitamins on top of that, you might create a deficiency that way, and you'll see that in your red cell distribution with as well. So in many cases, it's either from a deficiency or through frequent blood donations. And otherwise, it could be some inflammation, right, through erythropoietic activity, causing him to produce bigger blood cells sometimes and smaller blood cells sometimes. So an ultrasound in the kidneys is definitely advised, right? And then later on in the bone marrow.
I mean, the other thing though, Steve, like other concern that Steve and I had was that maybe he would be having some internal bleeding. Because the reason we're saying this is not because the red blood cell distribution, it's because his hemoglobin, just for the audience to know, his hemoglobin and hematocrit were slightly low, like not slightly low. They were like an average thing you'd find in not a guy using steroids. So, and steroids upregulate your red blood cell synthesis through direct activation of erythropoietin and through other effects. So when I saw him, I said, wait a minute, does he have a kidney problem or does he have bleeding internally? And then Steve was thinking maybe he was donating blood. So those are...
Or because he stops the steroids abruptly, right? And then your hematocrit tends to come down quite significantly as well, because you have all this erythropoietic activity when you're on cycle. You stop the steroids abruptly, then you destroy a lot of the old red blood cells at a higher or smaller size, and then you produce new red blood cells skewing the width. So there's a little bit of troubleshooting involved here, because that is what I noticed with guys that just stop. Their hematocrit and hemoglobin just plummets. And then
really?
bilirubin goes up. Yeah, just plummets over 2 months. So we'll have to check how long it's been since the last injection and this blood work. Well, the Olympia was 2 months ago, right? So maybe that explains it.
Like I'm okay, go ahead.
I recommended that he stays on cycle. So I believe that he is on right now.
Oh, it's on cycle?
Yes, this is an on-cycle blood test. That's why it's so impressive. The LDL you'll see went up, but the CRP is very low while on cycle. I'm pretty sure with orals as well.
Yeah, then there might be some internal bleeding going on.
That's what I'm thinking. It's very interesting. And we got to figure that out. That's a problem we have to figure out. But we're going to do some scans and try to do some other tests. His blood sugar, HbA1c was low, fasting glucose is low, obviously, because it's very low body fat. His lipids now had risen. So his LDL cholesterol went to 120 on cycle now. I thought that's a little bit too high, even though he's protected naturally. And we thought maybe under a doctor's supervision, he may consider ezetimibe. And then maybe later we could talk about using 1 dose a week or 2 doses a week if there was a problem. But I don't think there will be. And then
I think based on his previous blood work results, I don't think a statin is required. I think he'll get good results with Derek's citrus bergamot and ezetimibe. I mean, that's what I was running, even at higher dosages. And my LDL came down quite significantly, at least 90 or 100,
So guys, you know what's interesting? HDL, neither HDL count nor HDL size or HDL cholesterol, manipulating any of those does not affect human mortality. It's shocking. Like HDL obviously works in reverse cholesterol transport. And obviously you want a higher HDL. But anything, not just niacin, anything that raises HDL has never been shown to affect mortality, not just raising the cholesterol, but even the particle count. I was shocked to discover this. I thought it was just niacin. Nothing's ever been shown to do it. But anyway,
I think it's just it's the comfort. You see more blood work markers in range, you feel better about yourself.
Which is why I wanted to add that, even though he has, I wanted to add it after the ezetimibe, just so we know the life-saving medication, where did it bring it down to? And
right.
Now, Derek, you wanted to talk about ApoeB.
Oh yeah, so this is Peter Attia and other individuals who are seen as respected in the, I don't know, would you call it like medical / social media influencer hybrid space, see this as like one of the most indicative markers of atherogenic activity and potential cardiovascular disease outcomes. So They believe it's pretty prudent to have it on blood tests. And I just kind of wanted to get into your stance on it because obviously we check LP(a). We also have ApoeB in some of our Merrick Health panels where you can at least, if it's not in a basic panel, it's in the more complete ones, I believe, as a default, but you can also add it separately through the self-service lab section. But what is your opinion on that marker in particular?
I mean, what's great about ApoeB, so just for those that don't understand, that didn't realize what we're talking about, ApoeB, apolipoprotein B, is a kind of protein that's attached to basically all, except, actually it's attached to chylomicrons too. It's attached to all of the particles that may get lodged in your bloodstream, all of them. And a lot of the particles have other proteins, like, for example, VLDL has one called 48. There's some other proteins, but that protein's on all of them. So if you use that protein, you can count your VLDL, your IDL, your LDL, and it will include your HDL also, but you can count all the particles. Why this is important is because of that test from Quest Diagnostics, which is the ion motility test, where they test your LDL particle size, because this really mostly matters for people with the middle of the range cholesterol, I think. If you have very high cholesterol, if it's cholesterol, not particles. If you have very high, we know you have a lot of particles. If you have very low, we know you don't have much. But if you have a middle of the range, you could have a lot of small particles that are easier to get lodged in the wall, or you might have bigger particles that are more difficult to get lodged in the wall. So an easy way is you could check your LDL particle count. You could check your VLDL particle count, so you could get a breakdown, or you could just do ApoeB, it covers them all. So you know a number, as opposed to LDL-C is a quantification of the amount of cholesterol in LDL particles. It doesn't count the particles. Which is LDL particle count. I prefer to look at, just last thing. If I'm looking at cholesterol, I prefer to look at like non-HDL cholesterol. If I just have the cholesterol metrics. If you subtract that, it's quite reliable. Because some people can develop, like we were talking about earlier, triglyceride issues. Some people have weirdly high lipoprotein(a), VLDL, so on. What are you saying, Steve? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, is there a lipoprotein cell distribution width, just like a red blood cell distribution width, to see if there's a very skewed percentage between the very high particles and the small particles? I mean, it should be a calculated value based on your blood work, right? Red cell distribution width is a calculated value also. I mean, Derek, give Merrick a call. I'm sure they can do it. Right, through the diagnostics that they have. It will be just another good metric just to have in place. Like, okay, are your LDL particles are comparable size? And then maybe if you have a larger size, right, or other distribution width, then it might indicate another issue. So I checked my apolipoprotein A and B, and I only saw that my A was off. That was before adding in the ezetimibe. And that dropped it to way below the reference range. So my B was never off. So I didn't really investigate much into it, to be honest. But I will after this podcast.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, guys. So here we mentioned to the client because he never responded about the blood pressure. By the way, guys, you will not believe how hard it is to get a bodybuilder to do blood pressure measurements. I mean, it's really, I never succeeded. I've succeeded with like 2 or 3 people ever. But anyway, the point is, so we said you didn't tell us your blood pressure, but
tell me you give him a discount on coaching, and then the blood pressure gets read every day.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's a real one. But so here I told him we were saying like under doctor supervision, maybe you could procure telmisartan. Why? Because telmisartan is just so protective. Because as you guys know, I put a story up recently, like blocking the angiotensin receptor or the angiotensin system, or renin-angiotensin system, protects even people that don't have high blood pressure from heart disease. Mm-hmm. So telmisartan, one of the weakest ARBs, people can usually tolerate it even if they're not hypertensive at 10 milligrams or 20. And the thing is, telmisartan is beautiful because it blocks that system that's so bad, and then it activates the system that's so good, the PPAR gamma system, which is so involved in basically like insulin resistance and fatty acid metabolism. So I thought with that plus telmisartan, he has a strong, like a hedge against cardiovascular disease.
So presumably this would be your go-to if he was like, what is it, normotensive or whatever normal blood pressure is, versus you had valsartan earlier in the document. Exactly. That would be if he had high blood pressure.
Exactly. I was thinking we could negotiate. So first I was like, valsartan, you didn't respond to it. So I was like, okay, maybe you're not hypertensive, but still get this one,
Yeah. Okay.
But So here he got his homocysteine, and Steve was mentioning this earlier about his deficiency in B vitamins. He clearly has the MTHFR and maybe other genetic polymorphisms associated with this thing called poor methylation or bad methylation status. This is one of the most researched genetic polymorphisms that cause this, the MTHFR and others. They're among all the genetic polymorphisms, maybe some of the most research in regard to how they affect health, sort of like the ApoeB4 variant. And they're pretty well understood. Chris Masterjohn has a lot of documents, a lot of videos about this on YouTube. They're very reliable. If you want to treat your own homocysteine, it's an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Something you have to take, and you can treat it with just nutrition. No need for medications. So we gave him here the quick way to do it. And it's good we tested this. He would have never tested this probably in his life, potentially, unless.
No problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then he does not have.
Does he take creatine?
I don't know.
Okay, because one study found that supplementing with 5 grams per day, which is a no-brainer for any bodybuilder who isn't already, lowered plasma homocysteine by 50% in those who are homozygous C6-7T for MTHFR.
That could explain why my homocysteine is always so low, because I've been scooping that gorilla malt nitric religiously for.
Oh, when you have the betaine and hydrous in there and the creatine, like those are both very potent for reducing homocysteine.
Actually, you have a lot of products in your supplements that are useful for reducing homocysteine in general. There's glycine somewhere, I think I saw, or the betaine, trimethylglycine. That's what it was.
Yeah. We have a general B100 complex should help a little bit as well, right? Because vitamin deficiencies or B vitamin deficiencies have been linked to elevated homocysteine levels because they contribute to methylation.
So these are methylfolate and methyl B12, and the other one is a full spectrum B vitamin, and then there's the choline. I didn't add the creatine. I just realized what you're talking about, Derek, because I just thought it was presumptuous to tell a bodybuilder to take creatine because I thought it'll change the way he dress, the way he looks. I didn't want to say it, but so usually like to reduce the methylation demands, people consume a lot of choline and then the 5 grams of creatine. So he doesn't have a lipoprotein little a issue either. And by the way, we've asked him to do a genetic test. Hopefully we can get that done. So his liver test here, his bilirubin was elevated. His albumin was fine. His AST is now 20 points above the ALT. Okay, so the ALT has decreased a bit. He still has long-term inflammation there. We talked about the tudca with the bilirubin and all that. And then we mentioned this ratio of the AST and ALT. The thing is, the ALP and GGT were still not elevated. They were still almost the same state. So it seems to be like mild chronic elevation. And the albumin was solid. But the direct bilirubin was an issue. So, and then creatinine, great news. So remember last time his EGFR was 90 using creatinine. This time it was 60. Probably because he's on cycle and working out and stuff like that. But I got a little bit afraid, but then we were overjoyed to see the cyastatin C. EGFR based on cyastatin C was 90. So just to show you what the difference is, go ahead, Derek.
So cyastatin C was dead in the middle of the range, right? 0.88. The range is like 0.68 to 0.9 something, and depending on the blood work, some cyastatin C go up to 1.1 even.
Exactly. So I mean, go ahead, Derek. Sorry.
No, I was just going to reiterate, like we've already said it so many times, so I don't even know if we need to, but cystatin C calculated EGFR is like the best metric via blood to reflect that of inulin clearance, which is the gold standard relative to creatinine calculated EGFR, which is wildly inaccurate for most bodybuilders. So definitely don't immediately freak out if your EGFR is in like the 50s or something. If it's creatinine calculated, get the cystatin C off the bat. And assess where you're actually at, because I've had friends in their 20s who thought they were in kidney failure, and then they found out it was actually fine.
Yeah, I've had the same thing. You walk into the general health practitioner, you say your creatinine is a 1.7, which is way too high, right? But it's following a leg workout, and then they do your EGFR, which the E stands for estimated, guys. Keep that in mind. Yeah. And then, you're in kidney failure. You need to do an ultrasound. You do an ultrasound, and everything's fine. And then you do a 24-hour urine collection test with an inulin clearance attached to it. Back then, I didn't know about cystatin C yet. And then everything comes back normal, right? You have a EGFR or GFR, it's no longer estimated, of 102 or 100%. Yeah, so
I can't believe Bostin hasn't got a cystatin C yet.
Bostin has like a OCD kind of thing about this stuff. Like I told him, and I told him I would pay for it. I told him I'll pay for it. Derek will give us cost. Take it, and
we'll pay for it. Don't even do costs. We'll do it for free.
I think he's afraid to see it or something. It's it's difficult.
But how would you be afraid to see when you like see your creatinine calculated one every day? That's gonna be worse, probably.
He doesn't get it that often. He skips the creatinine. He does it every 2 months or something. He's like, you gotta. It breaks. It's a difficult position. He's
like the guy's looking at like transplants. So how would you not be wanting to see?
He's just on the list. He's not actively going to the doctor frequently. So he's not being reminded of the. But
he wants to do dialysis though too, which is like highly stressful.
But I don't know, but what he told me was that he said, "How could my cyastatin C be good? I have a EGFR of 9 or whatever."
Yeah, but maybe it is good, and then at least it puts a little point and a little bit of relief on you.
Like it couldn't be worse than your fucking current one.
It can't be worse. It can only be better. But okay, I need help. I'll bring you guys. We make a group chat and we can bully him at one point and make like agree. But
not everybody wants to see that in their face. I understand it's tough, but he needs to get it done, just not for himself, but for the sake of his family. I mean,
I would understand if there was a probability that it was like, oh, it's actually worse, but like there is no worse. Like worst case scenario, it's the same, and you're in the same boat you are now.
Well, so,
maybe did he ever get very high readings of creatine kinase and creatinine? Or maybe he's undergoing rhabdomyolysis, right? And so that's So
we thought it was an inflammatory state specifically. We really thought that could be the case, and he never checked his inflammatory markers. So when it was first happening, we couldn't know. But
I would go through the ringer and just get everything checked, everything. Just spend the money.
If anyone listens to this and wants to support Bostin, go hound him with messages. We want to save that guy's life. He has a
soul. I'll pay for it. Merrick Health will cover it.
Yeah. And if he wants to fly to Thailand to get everything done, it's not possible in the States. I'll hook him up with all the fucking clinics.
It's very.
I'll go hold his hand when everything is required here. So it's
very kind of you. But listen,
let's get this guy healthy.
On this topic, though, my experience with bodybuilders and seeing their creatinine and EGFR based on creatinine, because I get a lot of consultation with bodybuilders, they're not usually like, oh, fuck, I have kidney failure. They're usually like, I'm muscular. Ignore this. It's wrong. Yeah. And then they never test anything else. So rather, the thing I want to tell the audience is if you see your creatinine, in fact, don't even get your creatinine tested. Just get cyastatin C, EGFR. Right. Always ask for it if you're 220 pounds and above muscular.
Yeah, don't just assume that your cyastatin C is good because you're a bodybuilder too.
Like this is wrong.
Like I see that a lot of times in these like informative like blood work breakdown videos where a doctor's going over like a giant bodybuilder stuff. He's like, oh yeah, as you see here, your creatinine's fucking like super high, but that's normal. So let's just let's go to the next thing.
Well, it's normal if your cystatin C is in range, but if they're both out of range, it's time to take a break.
I bet you, Derek, if you ask a general physician what is cystatin C and what's symmetric dimethylarginine, they don't even know. So
no, I can definitely attest to the fact that is 100% accurate.
So the doctor doesn't know there's another test that could show the bodybuilder how well his kidneys are doing. So it's not that the doctor's fucking with him; he just doesn't know. And the bodybuilder's saying, "Hey, your test doesn't do shit." So we want everyone to know there is another test. You can test it. You can know if your kidneys are doing well. Yeah. And at least with the symmetric dimethylarginine, you can really triangulate. Unfortunately, our athlete didn't get the symmetric dimethylarginine tested, but we learned a lot from just that. So I wrote congratulations. I was just wanted the guy to realize it was great news. And then we said his kidneys can't be functioning that badly with the cyastatin C being EGFR 90. I mean, it's not in a state of acute kidney failure or something like that. So it leads me to, there could be some bleeding or something. And then
if he has any bleeding, he could simply check his stool. If it's like abnormally dark or black, that would indicate a little bit of bleeding internally. But if he has a stomach ulcer, right, from oral steroid use, which was pretty excessive, as we'll get into later. If he has a little bit of a stomach ulcer and just bleeding a little bit, he won't really notice it, but his hematocrit will just keep coming down and down and down and down.
Exactly.
So the Olympia was October 7th, and then since then he has been like, we're about to go over his stack for prepping, but like since then, just to kind of cap off the blood work, what's he been on since the Olympia that his blood work is representative of right now?
I actually don't know exactly what he's on. I didn't ask, but he'll tell us. We should ask. I thought that he went off for about 3 weeks or so and went back on his standard off-season protocol.
Well, if we don't know for sure, then maybe his hematology is not. I don't want to freak him out with an internal bleed when maybe he just has like borderline anemia from lack of androgens.
Yeah, because testosterone is like 4.1 nanomoles per liter, so it's half below the reference range. So on this blood work, I would say that is off cycle completely.
Like psych substance, when we got his blood work assessed, he was literally walking around anemic from lack of androgens.
Yeah,
like
same as me. I was anemic too at 175 nanograms per deciliter. Or
like his total T was what was it, 200 and something that we just saw?
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, so
he's definitely not on anything in this blood test.
We didn't see his recent testosterone. That was his old testosterone.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay, my bad.
I don't know if we saw his recent one. Steve, you might have the recent blood work around.
I gave the one from November 4th, whereas hematocrit is
there any
low.
testosterone there?
Yeah, and it's testosterone's at the bottom, so that's 4.1 nanomoles.
Oh, it's still there. Okay, so maybe you're right.
Yeah, so that's below.
So that's from
below
like.
reference range.
So that's like 3.5 weeks ago.
He's also on HCG.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's where it's coming from.
Are we sure he's on HCG?
Well, I have to use the maintenance tool. Well, for sure, we'll find out later on. Maybe we're
okay. Well, it's not. Yeah. Okay. So he probably. I'm going to assert he probably doesn't have internal bleeding. I think he's just low androgens.
I think it's just low androgen state by coming off abruptly, especially considering he was using all these erythropoietic compounds, which you create a stimulus for red blood cell production, then you take it away, and the hematocrit just plummets.
Well, this brings up an important point, Derek. That's why I was being like this, and I think maybe we should say this to the audience. Maybe some coaches are listening to this just to see like the level of care that I put into this. I see slight decrease in.
You go over everything.
Hemoglobin and hematocrit. Before, I didn't know the red blood cell distribution width. I saw a slight change. It's actually normal, but I know that he's a somewhat steroid user. I'm just afraid. I'm afraid there's something going on wrong with him that you don't see. And that I was supposed to be responsible to help you with your health, and I didn't dig. I didn't look. I didn't warn you, whatever. So I went to him from the beginning. I said, there's slight chance, very unlikely, slight chance you have some internal bleeding or kidney damage. We'll find out soon. Don't worry. If you have something like that, we'll catch it and we'll be able to do our best. So I manage how the person feels, but also I'm really trying. So like you said, you guys said, no, he probably doesn't have internal bleeding. Probably not, but what if he did? And
no, but we can't rule it out until we do the testing.
So that's why we want to do the scans. The scan just to be sure, like the echocard, is your heart okay for sure? Because I saw in the blood test you have low cholesterol, but what if he had some genetic thing that made him develop cholesterol fast, even with the low lipid?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So right, you're trying to rule out everything until you get additional testing, which is very good. Because a lot of people just push it under the rug. It's that's not it, and not even mention it. When in reality, you should, and then you can rule it out with additional testing because his testing is unfortunately far from complete.
Exactly.
Right, and that leads us to if we had his D-dimer level, we could rule it out.
I know we need more information about, but he's very willing. We'll.
No, I'm sure.
We'll try to get him to do tests every month and try to accumulate those metrics. I gotta tell you, he argued with the place. He tried to get every metric. He really tried. So eventually.
No, I'm sure it's very tough for you where he's.
You'll be able to help. Yeah, you'll be able to help. So now this cycle just it's listed. It's listed here from weeks 14 from the Olympia. This is his standard Olympia cycle that he's been using for several years. It goes all the way till the last 2 weeks, but does not have the dry out portion because I'm not interested. Yeah. That's not my specialty. Although we should have included for Steve and stuff. But
because I was like, where's
I'll
the
I'll
injectable? All the injectable stuff at the end,
Exactly. So I don't know how we should go through this. Maybe you guys.
So I would start just from all the way from week 14 to 10. So
he starts. So I was wondering if we should do because it's hard to follow. It's really complicated. So basically, it's 4 units of GH.
What an odd frequency, eh?
I
Saturday
know, right?
And Tuesday. I guess hypothetically that's split up, but I mean, I don't know. I'm used to Monday, Thursday, so it just looks weird to me.
Right.
Yeah, everybody has their preference. Maybe it's on that Islam calendar.
So if we
Saturday is a day off, right? In Muslim
Yeah, yeah.
Friday.
The first day of the week. That would make sense.
Right. Yeah. So maybe that's it. Yeah.
By the way, when you said that just now, let me drop in the chat here this a notation about the week 14 to 10 that I'm just remembering. You guys continue. I'm just gonna write it down.
Yeah. Okay.
How do we have access to this? I'm very curious because Derek has been texting us the whole time on the chat. By the way, Steve.
No, I was ordering sushi for me and my girlfriend actually.
Oh no! Yeah. No, I mean you said some stuff though. You said like I just saw it.
Oh, on the chat, I sent you.
I
sent you the prostate saturation thing, and then the creatine study.
I don't get a notification for some reason, but
okay, check the chat, and then you guys can figure that out.
I know. I thought the same thing, bro. But I'm trying to.
No, not at all. It's a huge distraction.
Yeah, it's true. That is
diversion.
I was just
a diversion type thing, you know.
Derek is a
good. We got to throw in the Caucasian dry also.
Yeah. But then, let's try to get an idea of this. Each one of these things lasts for a month, and you're about to go. You're a bodybuilder about to try to win the biggest show in the world in bodybuilding. So the first month, he's not using 30 units of GH. That's the first thing we should notice. A real bodybuilder, top guy, does not use 20 or 15. Doesn't even use 8. Doesn't use what Dorian Yates says he used. Doesn't use what Palumbo lies about using. He used literally 4 units. So that's just, I'm just saying this because I was lied to before. I thought everybody when I was younger, because of GH.
Yeah, it was on 15. Yeah.
We used to think everybody's using 15 units. Well, some people do for sure, but this is how it doesn't. So it's interesting. You know, and then the injectables, okay, so he's using 400 milligrams of tescipionate, 250 deca, or equipoise, which is a little hectic.
I know. Imagine being like, it doesn't matter which one, just pick one of the
Anadrol.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's choosing. Well, I understand. I mean, Deca and equipoise, like, you know, from a joint protective effect, could be irreplaceable, but right, the effects on the anabolism and overlapping estrogen reduction,
they're just like wildly different fucking drugs, and being like, oh, just pick one.
Very different. That's a big lapse, I believe, and Derek would agree in you know, optimizing. We should know. It's not his fault. This is from a coach originally, but I think, we should know which he responds better, or there should be some reason for using one or the other.
Yeah.
Then there's Mastron there. Okay, so
the estrogen readings between the Deca or the Boldenone is going to be wildly different.
Yeah, so like to give some context on like the choice between Deca or EQ, like one may be able to offer more, you know, joint protection in some aspect. One is going to be anti-estrogenic fairly significantly, to a point where if you're trying to elevate your, I don't know, your substrate for aromatase burden through your testosterone, and you otherwise need some estrogen control, maybe, you know, EQ is something that's on the table, where Deca otherwise is going to exacerbate the issue. Like, there are different reasons to deploy one or the other, and the fact that he has either 50 milligrams of anadrol or 50 milligrams of dianabol, that's also going to impact would I be choosing EQ or Deca. Like, imagine being on 400 tests, 250 Deca, 50 dianabol.
50.
You would be a fucking...
I spoke with him about that, about the dianabol versus anadrol. I texted him and I was like, why one or the other? Like, does one not because most people respond better to one of those.
Yeah, especially when you're choosing orals, you should be like highly specific.
No, he told me he responds way better to anadrol. It's just this is what he was told works, you know, so you switch.
And the thing that's wild is how this is, like, again, we talked before we started about how this is more or less what he's been doing like year to year. It doesn't change a lot. So the fact that they've been doing this longitudinal data representation of like what worked best for him, you think they know by now, like, okay, we've done this fucking cycle like 5 times. We know by now you like anadrol better, so let's do the anadrol, you know? Like, why is there still a choice?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not very attentive on the coach part.
No.
Right? Because the coach should figure out during the off season what works and what doesn't. And then you go into prep and you know 100% what works, right? Assuming that you work together with the off season. So, right, if there's still multiple choice, and combining 50 milligrams of anadrol with 30 milligrams of anavar per day from the start, it kind of explains why his liver enzymes are continuously elevated.
Oh man, Steve, did you see the? Okay, we'll still talk about it in a second, but there's an even weirder thing with anavar a little bit later. I know.
I saw.
You saw it? Yeah, but so okay, That's such a good point, Derek. These are different compounds activating different receptors. You respond to better one or the other, or maybe you switch them off so you don't adapt, but you don't say, hey, whichever I have, Anadrol or Dianabol, whatever's at home, I'm going to take that to prepare. That's my opinion. You lost some ability to optimize. Then, I mean, for people that are not competitive bodybuilders, I think this is interesting. Nolvadex in the morning and Arimidex in the evening every 4 days. And last Olympia, this was changed to more frequent Arimidex.
So was that with equipoise or was it with nandrolone? Right?
Yeah, so we're like commenting on 4 different possible cycles here is the problem. So it's like, hypothetically, if you were on 400 tests, 800 tests per week, and then you had 500 EQ and 400 master on, you have quite a bit of estrogen control via that modulation. So would I even be using? But then again, am I on Dianabol or Anadrol with my Anavar? And then maybe that calls into question: do I need Novadex and Arimidex? It may, if I'm on Deca and D-bol and only 400 mast, maybe I do. But in the context of like the choices being up in the air, like I could say this makes no sense and sort of makes sense in 2 different contexts. But ultimately, for me, when I see modulation of estrogen at 14 weeks out, I'm like why? Unless you're like gynoprone and you haven't had surgery, like why?
We should comment on that briefly. So that's such a good point because everything Derek's saying makes sense because it's 14 weeks to 10 weeks. Like there are.
And me saying gyno surgery, by the way, I'm not saying he did or didn't. I'm just saying like hypothetically for any individual at this time
measure. I mean, the last thing you want is a little bit of inflammation when you step on stage, because if that manifests during prep, you're not going to address it during prep because the surgery alone will put you out of the contract. And keep in mind, guys, if you sign the contract for the Olympia, if you drop out, there's a penalty.
Really?
Yeah, there's a penalty. When you sign the contract, you're expected to show up because they make promotional material with your image. So if you don't show up, it's loss of revenue for them. So I believe that there's a penalty. So let's assume it's the test.
Did you guys both hear the voice note about raloxifene that I had on the group chat, or you guys didn't hear it?
No, I would rather see raloxifene use instead.
So he is on raloxifene now. We switched to raloxifene, and there's a reason which we can get into later. But there's a reason.
One fair warning, and why I discontinued my raloxifene experiment is because it's related to clotting. Clotting related issues.
Because of
so I stopped the raloxifene gyno experiment. It worked. It shrunk my gyno by half. But I stopped it after I was doing more research, and this recent issues with clotting came to the forefront. I'm not going to take a risk. Right, so the raloxifene at 120 milligrams per day has been linked to deep vein thrombosis.
But so does estrogen in general. So just
using 2 grams of androgens.
Of course, but you're compounding everything. If you have a choice,
you
have a choice. I did all my clotting factors, and I did my my MRI. Right, so I'm basically in the green. Right, based on those metrics. But I don't want to take a risk. I'm primobolan, and the raloxifene, if it compounds it, right, I'm scared. Yeah, I don't want to make it any worse than unnecessarily is. So, but SERMs have been linked to like rare cases of clotting. But if rare clotting disorders are becoming more prominent due to the situation we're living in, compounded with Anadrol and equipoise, which all increase erythropoietic activity, risky, dude.
Actually, especially if people are listening and they're concerned about deep vein thrombosis, like Steve and John Meadows' first heart attack first incident was a deep vein thrombosis, if I remember correctly, right? And so if people are scared, which everyone should be scared, hey, maybe this is the time of the year that you don't keep estrogen high on the off season. Maybe you use an AI. Like I actually just took letrozole this week. Twice. For for gallbladder, it's a couple of reasons, gallbladder and the clotting. I said, hey, maybe there's a reason for me to control estrogen just for a couple of months because it's so weird. People are, things are happening.
I keep in mind that John Meadows, I'm not trying to point any fingers, but John Meadows always was adamant that he didn't use an AI, but used Novadex instead. Right. And Novadex and SERMs in general have been linked to deep vein thrombosis. Right. I'm not trying to point any fingers. I'm just trying to increase awareness.
If we were going to talk about DVTs and risk, like obviously EQ off the table, like there's certain things off the table immediately that I would say let's comment on this as if, I don't know, do we have to factor in what's going on in the world when we're talking about the cycle? Because that makes it like way more complicated.
Too complicated.
No, I already don't even know which compound. It's like flipping a coin between 2 of these things. This is like fucking calculus at this point. So let's
Dude,
just,
if I can save one life out there by mentioning that, then please.
yeah.
I know, but listen, if you want to do it as safely as possible, don't bodybuild. I think we can,
I would say
I think we can agree on that.
To make it simple, let's make our recommendations based on what we would do, excluding what's going on, but that keeping in mind the diagnostics should be able to indicate if you're getting it regularly, if something's going on that's problematic related to that, and then you can adjust accordingly from there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so check your blood test and your genetic, right? 23andMe, several SNPs related to clotting polymorphisms, and then you can take your factor V Leiden and your prothrombin time and thrombin time and a couple other ones. I just released a video on my YouTube channel about raloxifene and why I discontinued it, so please have a look there. There's a whole list of what you can test with bloodwork checks or genetic analysis regarding the risk for clotting. So
what do we think about the injectable choices, the oral choices, and the estradiol modulation, and then the clenbuterol use this far out? Like for me, giving my stance, I think 808. What's that?
It's a lot of orals, but that's my
I think
cycle.
I think the orals are much overkill for this far out. Personally,
can we say something though, just to establish his total injectable is like
no, it's not very high.
No, it's not very high. So, but
there are people that play tennis that take that much. Huh?
So I'd rather see him on a gram of test and a gram of primo, and leave all the orals for the end, right? Save that liver health. Not have any impaired triglyceride metabolism, which happens when you have a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, making it harder to lose fat. So if you have stubborn body fat areas on the glutes or the lower back and your liver health is impaired because you took orals the entire way through, then this last little bit of stubborn body fat prevents you from getting nasty shredded, which then most bodybuilders will go to the next logical conclusion, overdo the diuretics to get fake shreddedness. Now, I'm not saying that this person did that because he doesn't look like he overdoes the diuretics in any way, shape, or form. Just trying to prevent other people from making a comparable mistake if they don't have a genetic response to this kind of cycle. If you impair your liver health from the beginning, it might prevent you from getting shredded because triglyceride metabolism from long chain into short chain, medium chain for mitochondrial absorption is impaired. So, right. In this case, I would rather see him do a gram of test and a gram of primo or a gram of boldenone, and then maybe a little bit of masterone on top, and leave all the orals for the end, right, for the last 2 weeks.
Well, I think if you're going to use anadrol and you're going to at least make it make sense when you're taking advantage of the side effects too. So anadrol is going to kill your appetite. So do I want that at 14 weeks out with significant hepatotoxicity? No, but I mean, like, when
it's worse than that. They remove it later. That's the part. They remove it. They remove it.
Yeah, so if I'm starving and trying to suffer to get in shape, maybe I want to have my appetite crushed if I'm going to be using an oral anyways at like 4 weeks out or something.
Or what if you're taking the oral that causes the most glycogen retention of all except Superdrol, and you remove it 2 weeks before that?
That's probably for water retention, but then at least switch from anadrol to Superdrol.
I checked. Some people take anadrol orally into the
anadrol loading into a show is like pretty common for sure.
Yeah.
But I think Superdrol might be advantageous. Also.
And I'd rather have him do 300 milligrams of anadrol for 3 days into the show. I know it's a high dose. I'm well aware of that, but it's 3 days of anadrol exposure compared to 14 weeks.
And also, you don't adapt. It's quick, and you load. You want because if you keep the anadrol like 8 days in a row, you start to deflate a little bit. I don't know if you guys noticed that before.
So I think we can all agree the injectable burden we would rather see higher. The oral's non-existent at this point, and the test a bit higher, and the estrogen modulation can be driven through a primobolan quite easily, I think.
My 1-to-1 ratio, especially at his low body fat levels, because he starts off quite low body fat. At a 1-to-1 ratio of test to primo. Again, week 10, there should be blood work. Checking the lipids and the estradiol.
And if you somehow have gyno exacerbation, even with that much primo in the mix, okay, maybe a little bit of like a minor dose of raloxifene proactively.
60 milligrams should be enough.
Wait, Derek,
120 milligrams is the murder dose.
What's your dose for that, Derek? Like a maintenance kind of just
raloxifene?
30 milligrams? Yeah.
Well, it would depend on his gyno. Like I would start him at 30, and then if that's not enough, I would go 60 probably.
Okay.
But I mean, like I would imagine at like a very high dose of Primo, I would be quite shocked if he had any gyno issues.
Yeah,
no, I doubt it, because it blocks some of the It's a DHT derivative, so it might block some of the estrogen-mediated gene transcription in the
and it just competes for aromatase, like we saw in your blood
right.
work.
Exactly right, just in my blood work. So
okay,
just keep in mind, guys, that raloxifene doesn't have a metabolite that lowers estrogen like Novadex does. Right, it has the norendoxifene. I believe that's the metabolite that acts as an aromatase inhibitor.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
right, so you might still need some aromacin, right? Not Arimidex, ruins your lipids. I would prefer aromacin if needed, proven with blood work at week 10.
Yeah. And then for clenbuterol, I think 2 days on, 2 days off is fucking weird with 80 micrograms.
What scares me is that it may be effective. I think the reason they do it is to maintain sensitivity. A lot of people lose it really quickly, so they do a week on, a week off. So there's a different approach, but that is a way to fuck up your heart. 2 days.
So 80 micrograms is way too much off the bat, for sure. And then above and beyond that, I don't think you lose sensitivity in 2 days or even a week personally. Like you might notice the shakes start to diminish a little bit after like a week or two, but like I have not actually seen real evidence, even in literature, that you lose the effect like overall, like after even weeks of exposure. So like this whole
side effects go away. You
get but you don't like. If you, I think this is like a bro myth that has been like since disproven. Like people used to use ketotifen to upregulate beta 2. They used to cycle off.
That does work.
But it does upregulate beta 2. But I don't think you need to do that.
But no, because I've coached many people where ketotifen is not available, and they use this 20 micrograms of Clen, and when you notice that fat loss starts to stall a little bit, you add a serving of 20 micrograms.
Yeah, and by the time you've titrated up by the time you actually get to 100, you're like done contest prep.
Exactly. Yeah. Or
so why the fuck would I?
You can you would deploy all the other fat burners that are available, like GW1516 or the 5-amino-1-MQ, which I trialed, which basically inhibits further or stagnation.
Yeah, you have to talk about that.
Yeah. So
would you even start Clen at 14 weeks out?
No, when he stagnates. So if he starts to stagnate at 6 weeks out, for example, from week 6 to 4, you add in the Clen. Again, this competitor starts off quite lean. I don't think he needs Clen from the beginning. And Clen plus nandrolone, that's a recipe for heart enlargement.
Like, I'll put it, my general stance on Clen just to cap off my opinion on it. I think where you stagnate and you start to need to introduce exogenous, like metabolic aids is kind of where you put it in. But I don't think in general, if you're starting your prep at week 14 and simple caloric reduction and adding in a bit of cardio doesn't move the needle, then something's wrong, obviously, to a point where you need Clen at week 14 anyways. And then once you actually need it, at that point, I think you start at 20 per day, every day. You don't do fucking 80 and then cycle off for 2 days. I think you do 20 every day. And then once you start to notice a diminishment of effect, if you do, then you go up maybe to 30 and then you keep it at that until you get diminishment of effect. And by the end of the prep, you should not be doing more than like 100 micrograms, I think, fucking ever.
No, I usually do like 20 microgram servings in between meals, but again, built up over weeks or 10 days or increments. So 20 micrograms for 10 days and then 40 micrograms placed over 2 servings of 20 micrograms, right, for a week or something, right, as needed. I would rather have him run 5-amino-1-MQ at 150 milligrams per day, even though it's mad expensive and a little bit of an unresearched compound. At least all the clinical literature shows that it's doesn't cause any tremendous negative effects on your health, and neither did it on my blood work when I trialed it for 8 weeks. So I think if he runs the 5-amino-1-MQ, which upregulates GLUT4 translocation and helps with nutrient absorption, allowing him to be fuller, right, and then maybe remove the anadrol, which gives a comparable effect regarding muscle fullness, then he can run that for 14 weeks, even though the data is not there. I don't think that 5-amino-1-MQ has been linked to a heart enlargement or muscle spasms or hydration issues like clenbuterol has.
So Steve's thoughts are basically you're using this too early. It is harmful for your health. And Derek's thoughts are also that it started with too high a dose and started this weird 2-on, 2-off thing. My thoughts, just to really summarize very quickly, I thought that I can't comment on the drugs he chose because people respond so differently to drugs. He knows how he responds to them. I just find that DECA or equipoise or anadrol or Danable is a mistake. That should
yeah. He needs to make a choice, and I'm sure he knows which one works best for him. But I think he got this protocol from an older coach, and just I didn't adjusted it by himself. I'm sure he's got the experience to make the right decision. But ideally, I would just.
I mean, when we asked him about the Anadrol, he said for sure Anadrol. I was like, why do you have the Anadrol days with us? He told me to take either one. So,
but still, 50 milligrams Anadrol and 30 milligrams Anavort. It's 80 milligrams of orals per day.
That's a curiosity as well. Okay, so real quick, what I wanted to comment on, the esters are too long. There's no reason to have those long esters there. I don't know why the esters are long.
In the beginning, it's okay. It's
ApoeB will not be out of your system. In that it will not fully be out of your system for the whole time, almost.
No, but it doesn't hold water. So for the PCT, it makes a difference.
I don't know. I mean, this is just my thought. My thought is that they switched the esters later, but I think that some of the esters were still in the system. I don't know much about bodybuilding, so obviously this might be rubbish. And then the next thing I want to say is like clenbuterol. I just don't understand why it's 2 on, 2 off. That's too frequent. Your heart is literally changing its behavior completely the next day. Maybe like 2 days off a week. So you resensitize, that might make sense. I don't know how, I never use clen much, so I don't know how you really quickly desensitize, but I just feel like 2 on, 2 off is dangerous for the heart.
I think the dosage burden in the acute time frames is too much. And you also have to consider too, when you're the one who told me about the caffeine studies that showed that if you use stimulants and then you restrict them and change the stimulation to your heart, that is problematic. So if you're constantly putting in stims and taking them out, I think a low, benign, well-tolerated dose consistently that your heart adjusts to is safer than putting it in, putting it out, putting it out.
No, that's probably true also. You probably shouldn't resensitize because this thing is too stimulatory. You don't want to resensitize, like I have these changes. You know what I mean? You're right. Yeah, you're right there.
Okay. And by the way, the
Nabivolol needs to be in place, right? 5 milligrams Nabivolol from the beginning, even though it inhibits fat loss at the end. But what he could do is add in 5 milligrams of Nabivolol, telmisartan, and ezetimibe, all the health supplements that we recommend generally, and take the Nabivolol out once the clenbuterol comes in. Now, of course, it limits its heart protective effect. But by the time you add in 20 micrograms clenbuterol and replace that right from the Nabivolol to the clenbuterol, the effect is very pronounced. Very pronounced. And now you only need to subject yourself to maybe 60 micrograms clen at most over the last 6 weeks. Right? You pull it out 1 week before because it inhibits glycogen storage at the end during our carb load. But then the exposure window is so much shorter. I got to go to the bathroom again. One final thing. This week 14 to 10 is a total of 2,260 milligrams of steroids. So it's not insanely high, right? 4 units of growth hormone and 2.3 grams of steroids to start the cycle off with. It's not crazy. Not crazy.
Oh, you're counting the orals also? Oh, okay.
Yeah, counting the orals in total. Okay, I'll be right back.
It's something I realize a lot of people don't do is the weekly burden of orals. They don't even count it. They're just like, 30 milligrams a day this. But like cumulatively, it all adds up, right?
Yeah, but it's not 2,000. I just trying to see where you got 2,000.
Well, let's just say 50 milligrams times 7. We're looking at 300. And, what is it? 50. Yeah. 50 times 7 is 350, right? And then we have 800 tests. So we're at like
800 tests. Oh, it was twice a week. That's what I'm missing. Oh, okay. I was calculating it wrong.
Yeah. So this would be his cycle. Hypothetically, is 800 tests. He should have just wrote it as like weekly, but
I know.
Yeah, so it's cool. So 800 tests, 500 Decker EQ, and 400 mast, which I don't hate, the 500 Decker EQ and 400 mast necessarily if he responds well versus like a high dose of Primo. I just think that from being a well-tolerated, getting the estrogen modulation and being able to remove the aromatase inhibitor concurrently potentially, I think, the higher test and higher Primo just might be the move. But I think we're all in agreement that the orals make no sense here really. And the clenbuterol is like haphazard as fuck. And I think raloxifene is definitely a better move if you actually needed gyno safety still.
But Derek, don't you think that this DECA does something in terms of adding more receptor agonism and complicating the signaling a little bit? Like in terms of, if you just have Primo and test, you don't have any kind of like progestogenic kind other than the Anadrol a little bit.
Well, it depends. Are we recomping and trying to gain muscle into a show? Like I would need to see his like baseline state too. Because if it's just retention and we're just trying to get like high level, I don't know, like anti-catabolism, like I understand what you mean from like a multiple vector standpoint. There's definitely an argument to be had for a bit of DECA in there. So actually, you could probably say a more reasonable approach would be like 800 test, high primo, and like a bit of DECA, but nothing that's so
like a
problematic.
That's what
therapeutic dose of 100 milligrams of nandrolone, something like that. And then perhaps an aromatase inhibitor in place, or a little bit of masterone, right? Not too much to the point he goes flat. And so again, blood work.
Like either way, you have a lot more leeway with the injectable dosages and picking smarter choices when your orals are gone.
Yeah,
at this far out. So
and he's got plenty of muscle. He's got plenty of muscle, so it's not like he's going to get lumps and bumps everywhere. As long as he puts the oil nice and deep, then you won't see it cosmetically. And if he stops all the injections a week before and do some deep tissue massage therapy at the end, not too close that he gets inflammation, but just to work away the tissue, then it should look all uniform and not suspect at all. Unlike another competitor that we're not reviewing.
Several. Quite a few of them, bro. They only pick on that one guy. There's a few of them.
There's a few of them, yeah.
Bro, there's one guy with his biceps looked hectic. American guy, hectic. I never had the guts to like inject a muscle, directly inject a muscle. I always thought it would somehow like get pointy. Why would I want that? So
I knew a pro before who actually warned it when we discussed my first cycle. He said, "Whatever you do, don't inject your biceps because you will not be able to do curls for a month."
Bro, there was a guy in Dubai in like 2005. He worked out in this gym he worked at this gym that was close to my high school. We used to see him like walking around the gym all the time. Well, I have to show you guys. You see. So he was a guy who was like 6'2", mildly muscular. If you saw him, you would never think he used steroids. You think he works out, but he never used steroids. I don't know where else he had it on his body, but the most famous one was he had this thing here on the trap right here. There were like two balls, bro. There were two balls that looked like they were fat. They would jiggle when he would walk, but we thought he was injecting synthol there. We didn't know what synthol was. So we thought everybody was like, that's synthol. But it was like two balls. And then he also had it, I think, on his shoulder. They were like, I guess, implants or something.
I think there's one arm wrestler who's got that, right? Some guy from Kazakhstan or...
Not that, you're talking about the strongman, right? With that had the really big one. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that is too. I think that's a strongman powerlifter. That's the guy. Someone comment below. Yeah, let us know what it was.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody knows. And then there's of course a bodybuilder who actually injects all of his gear in the straps.
What? Is that
smoke on the water, blue water. I don't know. I know he's got a slogan. I don't follow all these guys, man. I get tired of the comedic. I'm trying to educate myself. So yeah, there's another bodybuilder that clearly spikes his traps.
Steve, you know what reminds me of you? Wesley Vissers. We're
from the same country.
Yeah, same accent exactly.
Wesley's a cool guy. He started commenting on my my Instagram here and there.
It's very nice.
So I think we can get him on a podcast at one point.
He watches Boston podcast. He's a very nice.
He watches all of it. Yeah, he's a super nice guy. He's eager to learn and. Knowing how bad Holland is, what he's accomplished in Holland with the gym and his clothing line and being so active on social media, it's commendable because I had to leave that country completely just to get inspired to do something for yourself, you know?
I mean, I feel like he's the thing for me is just I don't know. I'm not a bodybuilder, right? I was a strength guy, but when I look on the stage, I see this guy and Chris Aceto's guy in the top 14 and the men's open, who's the guy with the great physique, small waist. He's the 38 or something. What's his name? The guy
in open.
Chris Aceto's guy.
The Brazilian guy.
No. He's a black guy. I'm forgetting his name real fast. He's new to
Cedric.
Not Cedric. Oh, what the hell is going on here? The guy who says his sponsors won't let him grow. Remember that Derek made a video on it. There's somebody complaining about sponsors not giving him time off the competition.
Oh God!
I don't know him that well. That's why I'm forgetting the name. But the point is, those two guys, when I see them, I'm like, these guys deserve a trophy. Like, they just didn't fit in the bracket, or somehow they don't like their physique.
I mean, if you want bodybuilding to change, right? We should after we review this guy's blood work, right in cycle, we should just go a little bit on a tangent and listen. If you want bodybuilding to change really, you got to change who it gets rewarded. And if you keep rewarding the freaks who have to sacrifice their health to become a freak, then people continue to die. So if you reward a Regan Grimes or all these
the guy I'm talking about is the perfect one, though, right? Even better than Regan.
Yeah.
Regan Grimes has no arms. Let's be honest. His arms are the size of my arms. They're 18 inches, 19, max 19.
No, come on, dude. I've met Regan Grimes.
I swear his arms are not 20 inches.
He's huge. He's freaking huge. His arms are like this freaking big, dude.
Bro, he gets on stage. It looks like he doesn't work out his arms. It looks like he only works out his lower body. What are you talking about?
No.
Seriously, come on.
I remember Regan is a good guy. So
no, I don't mean it in a bad way.
Don't be so hard on him.
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it in a negative. These are bodybuilders. That's their work. You can critique their work. I don't mean it in a bad way. I don't mean that. I just meant like the guy I'm talking about, Chris Aceto's guy, literally looks like the ideal Mr. Olympia. His arm is as big as
he's got beautiful shape. Yeah, he just needs to get a little bit harder and fuller, and then he's good. But when you start rewarding these guys, then the sport will just progress away from this freak show of guys that literally have to sacrifice their health. You know, and
what's crazy
is the judging will never change.
When I was listening to Regan talk to Dennis, he was saying he left the oxygen gym because they were basically was hinting that he was worried about drug use or something like that for his health. Then he went to America and in 2 days lost 20-something pounds and destroyed his kidneys. I just realized, what are you doing? You went and got a kidney injury.
I'm sure he didn't know. So I met Regan. I went to Kuwait with Tony Huge when he was there for 3 weeks, and he already gained 30 pounds by that time, and he was not happy.
Oh,
I never talked about it because he didn't talk about it, but he was not happy there. He was miserable.
Actually, I gotta respond to that video because not his video, but Trigili or somebody else made this. They're very like disrespectful to our people. They think like they were saying they just throw money at anything. Trigili was saying this Arabs just throw money. Badr doesn't appreciate money. They don't know Kuwait has no oil, bro. Kuwait is purely built out of business people. Badr's family are business people. They're not oil. They didn't get the money from some sheikh.
Super nice people when I was there, dude. Fucking friendly. I didn't get a chance to meet Badr myself, but I met Abdullah, and he seemed like a super nice guy. So, right?
The thing is, it's like sometimes people in the abroad, they think of all the Arabs are these sheikhs that have money from oil. But they don't realize that there are cities, even in the Gulf of Arabia, where most people think that's where the oil-rich sheikhs are. There are cities like Dubai, a country called Bahrain, and a country called Kuwait that have never had oil except for a very short period, very little bit. Where these cities were built off the backs of
trade
that worked hard, and they worked hard. Yeah, we were in poverty 100 years ago. Poverty.
People don't travel so much. When you travel, you see that the world is pretty much the same, and that it's the people that is divided, not the cultures.
Sometimes there's like different cultural things, but they're more like artifact. They don't change the kind of person. It's just change. It's like what you're wearing. It's your clothing.
Right. Yeah. And you have a little bit of different traditions, but we all want the same thing. So I've traveled to Kuwait, Dubai, right? I've been in that part of the world a little bit, and I've been to Asia and in Europe. I haven't been to the States yet, but look, people are all the same, and bodybuilders are bodybuilders. And they take care of each other, until you get into a blowout and the ego gets involved. But usually most people take care of themselves quite well. I think just for Regan, he got, maybe he got a little bit turned off with the protocols that are involved. But the protocols clearly work for Brandon Curry and Nathan Diash and the other guys that went there. Albeit that I will say that in my opinion, it's very excessive.
Well, I hear a lot of crazy things. Yeah, that's true. But don't get me wrong. There are people who don't care about money there. There are sheikhs who have oil money. But Kuwait doesn't have any. That's the problem. It's like the wrong country, bro. They didn't even know what country they're in. They're like, these are the rich guys that don't... No, Kuwait was built off business people. There are no rich...
No, right. And when I was there, you could clearly see it, There's like in the evening, you get a lot of people that just work office or have some sort of business going on. And then they go out and have nice food. And, it's not like... Of course, they roll up in a nice car. All right, where were we?
Okay, so we were on weeks 10 to 16. Now, if you guys see, there was 4 units of GH every day. Suddenly, it's 3 units twice a day, interestingly. And this is obviously from the old coach. And now the test has decreased. Okay, and it's still Saturday and Tuesday. The equipoise or DECA, or now it's for sure equipoise, has increased. And the mass run has decreased. Bro, exactly.
What the fuck?
Yeah, Derek, imagine when I first wrote this down, I was like, what is going on? It took me like 2 hours, bro. And it was sent
when you switch the Anavar to Proviron.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff goes on here. So
all
this changed.
For GH, one thing that we didn't touch on in the first section is timing, which I don't think it's like that super relevant, but optimizing fat loss, I would, pardon me, I have a troche in my mouth right now, so that's why I'm talking kind of weird. But
troche.
Tadalafil.
Oh,
All right.
So
your girlfriend is coming later. I got
that sublingual absorption, bro. So if you're doing like the timing, because people are always like, what's the optimal GH timing? If you're pre-contest, I would imagine we would all agree that using at least one of your doses pre-cardio, like ideally fasted cardio if possible for enhanced lipolysis, and then maybe personally I would do the second dose before bed because you're gonna have negative feedback. So I would want to have that, GH spike when I would otherwise have got it endogenously personally. So rather than being vague and saying morning and evening, I would say pre-fasted cardio or pre-training if you're not doing cardio that day, and then pre-bed for the second one. If I was going to split into two, would you split into more than that, or you think that's sufficient?
I would do 2 unit injections. I would do before fasted cardio, before the workout, and then the third injection before bed, if needed. Yeah. So that's from week 10 to 6. Yeah. I like the growth hormone before activity. Now, of course, if you take 2 units of growth hormone or a higher dose, you might risk a little bit of heart enlargement, and with that strenuous workout, especially on this much orals and clenbuterol. But on the flip side of that, you're mitigating some of this acute insulin resistance which occurs by activity. So you're taking care of the liberated triglycerides through activity, and then by the time you finish your workout or your cardio session, this insulin resistance is no longer present, which you can check your blood glucose levels quite easily. And then IGF-1 secretion is already starting, promoting nutrient partitioning and absorption with your post-cardio, post-workout meal. Now, of course, Leo, you're skeptical, I see.
Oh no, I'm just not of you of the cycle.
Very fascinating, right? So it's just a timing thing, and with the growth hormone, of course, there's no real. There's always a trade-off. But I personally, I like before activity or before bed if there's a third dose of 2 units.
And we like this dose in general pre-contest, 6 for this guy particularly.
Well, so
I've recommended way more.
Listen to this.
I'm surprised it's this low.
Let me tell you, the first time we spoke, he told me that he raised the GH dose upon someone's recommendation, and he was very concerned. For him, the 6 units was like, what the hell's going on here? This is too much. I'm risking my life. That's how careful he is. So his normal used to be, it seems to be 4 units almost always. But anyway, so there's 6 units, but there's this thing, man. I just don't understand how you changed Anavar with Proviron.
No. Let's crush our non-existent SHBG into negative, because that's going to help more.
Yeah. My understanding.
How's that even going to help? I already have it.
It's not. I don't know why so many gurus use Proviron still at all. Like, what do you, like, why? Explain to me.
They love it. They love to say like 200 milligrams of Proviron take it for 3 weeks. Like, what's gonna
not your heart?
Or like there are people that take it year long too. It's ridiculous.
Okay. Oh, I know, man.
So the 20 milligrams of Nolvadex is still there. 1 milligram.
So to clarify, these orals I would still have at 0 right now at 10 to 6.
Right. I agree.
So he still has the clandestine. Now the one thing is now we start commenting about the changes. So the changes are in yellow from last time. So the changes were they increased the Arimidex frequency and increased it again here. So now it's every 2 days, but you need the Proviron still. So I don't know why.
So at 10 to 6, would we be changing enanthate to propionate by now, or would you be leaving it as enanthate still? I'm thinking once you get like under week 6, maybe you start looking at shorter esters. But at up to 6, I think you're good. So personally, I don't know if I would even change the injectables from week 10 to 6 at all.
Well, week 10 to 6 is pretty much the same. You might do a dosage increase, right? As your calories come down and you get a little bit fatigued, and you lose anabolism because your calories have been restricted for such a long time. So maybe week 14 to 10 is like 750 test and 750 primo. And a week 10 to 6 is 1,000 test and 1,000 primo. Just as an example, you go an increment up of dosages to facilitate anabolism and prevent a little bit of tachyphylaxia.
There's one thing that bothers me here is that the Anadrol is daily. Okay, if it's going to be daily for 8 weeks, then I would say, first of all, you're fucking your liver early, way away from the competition for no reason. But and you're gonna get cholestasis, all and inflammation. You could have even just injected them and had higher inflammation. You'd probably been better off. But I wanted to say, like, if it's been 8 weeks in a row, at that point you could say Anadrol one day, Danabol the other day. At least you're gonna have more of an effect than using the exact same oral for 8 weeks. You're gonna get tachyphylaxis. There's no way you're not. You're not invulnerable.
Yeah. Like if I was going to be using orals at all at 10 to 6, it would be not every day. It would be pre-workout. And it would be to keep my strength up while I am potentially losing strength to retain performance and hold muscle. And then if I'm going to go to every day, it's going to be when I need the liver toxicity to like hinder my appetite and shit and get that extra like fullness and whatnot, you know,
but
closer
it's
to week
2 or 3.
Yeah. So for me, I would probably keep the only thing that changes. I agree with Steve at increasing injectables if needed. If you're going to use an oral, it should be like acutely around the workout, only a few times a week at most, I feel like. And it should be an actual like performance aiding oral, not fucking Proviron. And then the metabolism part with clenbuterol, I think if you need to at this point, maybe you'd be at like 30 to 40 micrograms, but that would be like not predetermined. It would not be like, oh, by week 6, you're going to need this much cleanse. Like, no, we go as we go and we like see what happens.
Oh, can we comment on that? How can you design a full 14-week cycle ahead of time without knowing how you're going to respond to
like change the 1 milligram of Arimidex at week 4. Like, we just know you need this much in a month.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, if you don't do blood work, but a lot of people like their cycle laid out in front of them.
Right? Oh, but like you give the options. If you're responding well to this, we'll do that. But
but then you can also purchase what you need, you know, in the beginning. But like this is why I like Aceto's approach a little bit more. You take the pictures and you'll all say what you need to do next for the next couple of days.
Exactly.
Which basically turns you into a pharmacy because you need to have every pharmacological intervention available because one day they'll say, I'm not speaking for you, Chris Aceto, but from what I've heard, they might say, oh, you need a little bit of this androgen for a couple of days, and then you come off, and then you need steak for a couple of days, and he just adjusts on the fly, which means you have to have everything in stock just to make sure that you can use what he recommends at the right time.
But basically what Chris Aceto is doing is sort of like what we do for health. Like we want the scans, we want as much information as we can to respond. Yeah. And Chris Aceto is like, tell me what you look like. I can't tell you what to take. Show me what you look like today. And so he's getting the
information. A little bit flat. You take some Halo to to get the androgens going, right? Which is not far off from what I've heard.
So
Chris, I love you. You're the greatest.
So I wanted to comment on something. I made a mistake here, guys. This 3 IU in the morning, 3 IU later was added by the coach. It was changed. It used to be 4 IU. So this was added by the guy. I just didn't highlight it. And here he continues with the 6.
I have nothing against that. If you told me it was doing 10, I would believe it.
I know. The two things I thought about were these are my 2 complaints about the cycle overall in terms of his
your GH is too low.
No. In terms of his actual what happened on stage, I'm thinking that they screwed him over a little bit in terms of SERMs. They removed some SERMs and messed with the AIs, and I think it caused him to hold a bit more water than he's normally because he always uses Novadex up to the end. The second thing I had an issue was I'm forgetting. Man, I just had a complete slip in my brain. I have no idea what I was. We've been here for 4 hours. I've been here for 4 hours, not 3.
Yeah.
But so let's continue. So he changed it to 6. Now it's been 8 weeks. This is the 8th week. He's at 6. Initial week, they didn't change it. I was going to say that, the other 2 complaints I had was his fullness. So I thought he could have brought GH into maybe the competition with the proper aromatase inhibition and had Anadrol the last week. So the competition of the 2 being as full because, you guys know particularly this person, why we'd want to be full and stuff,
Ideally, I would have him off growth hormone for 2 weeks leading into the show and then use it for 2 days leading into the show just to restore a little bit of fullness and prevent you from going flat if you're using a diuretic.
You don't think that's a bit variable in terms of like unpredictability though?
I don't work with the guy, but if I were working with the guy and we'd do the full all season together, not pitching myself.
You know then, yeah.
I stopped coaching, so I'm not pitching myself. But if you go through a period where you know how long it takes for the subcutaneous water of growth hormone to go away, and you time that 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the show, and you know how long it will takes to come back, you could do maybe 2 days or 3 days of growth hormone loading right, with the proper glucose management. And then, of course, peaking is an art in itself. But if you know how the body responds, you can restore fullness like crazy.
Personally, for safety, just like, let's just assume I didn't know how this guy responded, and we were working with somebody for the first time. I would just keep everything the same going into it, and not throw it in at the end.
Yeah, I'd be afraid.
I would take the growth hormone out 2 weeks before.
But you're working with him, so he knows him.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I think the GH dose is the same recommendation based on the previous week, where we split it into 3 shots based on maximizing lipolysis, and then the injectables, interesting changes, which I'm not opposed to the choices, like test probe, trend, masteron. It's like,
bro, you are
okay, let me finish, bro. The Cisternino immediately after, nonsensical, makes absolutely no sense. So what exactly is he doing? Because I see the 3 is changed. It changed. So this is his previous what he did, and then the changes are the most recent Olympia.
Yeah, the yellow is the change of this to this.
Yeah, so the recent one. So let's just comment on the recent one.
Well, but it's so interesting, right? This other guy, he was like, no, you need to raise your test by 50. And then he was like, trend too high, lower it by 50. Then he's like, I know you well, lower the masteron by 50. Then he's like, no, what? You need winstrol too. And let's start doing injectable winstrol in a couple. There's a lot of interesting things going on here. I just don't know how they thought. Maybe Steve can take us on a tour of it.
It just let's start a kitchen sink at it, and one of them will stick.
Well, I mean, I understand the test.
But honestly, I recommend similar protocols of about this ratio between test, trend, masteron, primo, and injectable winstrol on top. And if you have a lot of muscle maturity, which this competitor has, you can get away with less trend, maybe 50 milligrams every other day, right? A very low dose. And masteron, and increase the winstrol to 100 milligrams per day, and then maybe alternate between 100 milligrams injectable and 100 milligrams oral. So at this point, at week 6, maybe an oral every other day of winstrol would come in, but ideally I would prefer injectable winstrol. And if it's too painful, dilute it. Right? With
we're getting
water.
Hypothetically, like we're getting a cosmetic effect at a winstrol. We're not getting additional anti-catabolism that we're not otherwise achieving with our test, trend, masteron, primo. So like for me, winstrol, the most notorious infection-ridden compound ever, telling me to inject like 6 times 7, 42 shots of it before the show, I'm sketched out. I'm going to get an infection. For me, I don't see the utility of like pure cosmetic, like kitchen sink things until like near the end. So like I would, if you need winstrol, I would be, considering what Steve said with potentially the orals. But I mean, I don't know, like I'd rather just see a fucking higher dose of test, trend, masteron than anything personally.
It's the Olympia. It's the Olympia. So keep in mind that the cosmetic effect of winstrol in combination with other DHT derivatives.
I just rather like put it closer, because I'm like,
I'm wondering, can you just start it 4 weeks before? I don't think it takes that long to get the full cosmetic effect.
I would say 6 weeks. I would say 6 weeks is the sweet spot
for injectable.
Yeah.
6 weeks? Really?
Yeah. 6
really?
weeks.
That long, huh?
Yeah, because you stop it 1 week out, right? So you have 5 weeks on winstrol, and the last week you bridge with the anadrol, superdrol, whatever, right? So the winstrol needs to be started a little bit earlier to kind of saturate it, because you don't want to do any injections 1 week before the show to prevent these lumps and bumps. And then if you're knowledgeable with winstrol and you know how to dilute it with other injectable compounds like injectable B vitamins or carnitine or whatever else, right, to remove some of the post-injection pain, then the risk of an infection is significantly reduced, because all of those have preservatives in it as well, right? And that's why you should always, one caveat is that always make sure you use ampules for winstrol. Don't use the vials, because every time you use a vial, you pierce the rubber and a little bit of air goes into the vial. And then within the first 5 milliliters, you're fine. And then after that, you start to get worse and worse post-injection pain. And by the last milliliter, you got an infection going on for sure, because the contaminants are going into the vial.
I just realized that the winstrol is oral on every other day. And then
that's cool. That's what
my bad.
No, it's so interesting that it's like, okay, wait, we'll get to that because that's next, right? We already have it. Oh, he already introduced it. So it's every other day, but then later he adds in oral. Yeah, he has oral winstrol here. Well, no,
I think that's injectable winstrol because
injectable winstrol with his other shots, and then on the off days he does oral winstrol. Which,
isn't that interesting? So
do I need 30 milligrams oral winstrol when I have 60 Anavar and I'm already on 75 injectable? Like, I don't know. Seems.
Can I comment on what really bugged me with this one? So if I had I don't know how to prep people for bodybuilding shows, but I know about these compounds. If I had a guy came to me and said, "This is what I usually take, and I'm a good competitor, and this is what I usually take," if I changed it, I would have to change it not because I think that he responds better to 100 versus 150 or 100 versus 150 or raise the test, whatever. Instead, it would be something like, hey, you're doing something illogical. Why are you using the testosterone? That I could remove that, but I would feel really hesitant to fuck with this because what if I did something that didn't go well for him? I didn't know his body well. I just started working with him. So that's my thought, and then I agree with everything Derek said. Basically, I don't know much about how long you have to do before the competition, but that makes sense to me completely. Look, he removed the Novadex. That was interesting. He took out a drug that the client needs, and he just randomly took it out. He's like, "Fuck, just take the aromatase inhibitor daily," and then the client now moved to daily.
Yeah. So if we needed a SERM to begin with, the logic in pulling it out at this point is. You're basically saying I'm going to crush your estrogen to zero to a point that the SERM is irrelevant, but we're 6 weeks out.
Except
so it's
apparently, I asked some bodybuilders and like a few competitive, like Dom Cardone, a few of Boston, and these guys. I asked them, "Do you ever use SERMs with AIs? And is there a reason?" Because I was like, "Look, on paper, I just don't understand. If you've crushed estrogen, it doesn't matter." But they told me, no. There's a significant effect when you use them together. It looks
Do you know how many bodybuilders I've seen use shit that they swear makes sense, but it's like, I need my letrozole and my Arimidex.
Yeah, they know that they do that often.
Yeah, that's a bit silly. Yeah, but I do understand the combination of Novadex and Arimidex, for example, or Novadex and an AI. But that's
one thing to note. Some of these compounds do inherently activate estrogen receptors without aromatizing too. They have affinity for ER. So yeah, I could see the utility of a SERM plus an aromatase inhibitor closer to the show, but like overlapping aromatase inhibitors, obviously like nonsensical. And I think people should stop doing that.
Yeah,
I thought so too. But so they did actually try to convince me that overlapping AIs were also sensical or made sense. But they did try to convince me that. But I thought the SERM really might have something in practice. I mean, at least in our case, we know we want him to have one for another reason. But anyway, it's just a lot.
So removing it makes no sense, kind of. If you justified having it until now, like why take it out?
You know, when you get as lean as bodybuilders do at the end, right, you can notice these minute changes quite dramatically. So, right, they're very in tune with their body. So even though maybe it's nonsensical on the pharmacology side, right, on paper it doesn't make sense. If you see a clear difference in the mirror and you swear by it, then you're just going to do it. And that's why bodybuilding is so abusive, because sometimes it doesn't make sense, but they notice a clear difference in their physique. And then, well, if you don't do the blood work to kind of shove it under your nose that it's nonsensical, but the physique changes warrant it, and then you get into these health situations down the line, you know?
I mean, this reminds me of, well, we'll go back to this. I was going to go off topic a little bit, but stay on topic. It's just, I don't think off topic. Let's go back to the thing so we don't lose track. So he moved. Now we're in the last 4 weeks. There's 2 more weeks. He reduced the GH to, the GH is again 6. Mm-hmm. This is not changed except I think he added something.
Winstrol is 25 milligrams higher.
Primo was already there. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I don't actually know if. I mean, I guess this is injectable, but I didn't really know if it's an injectable. It could have been an oral. I didn't ask.
But I think it's injectable because
it's under the subsection. There's an injectable subsection right there.
No, I put it in that section. Oh, bro, there were no sections. This took me so long.
Oh, really? Yeah.
No, I have no idea. It took me an hour and a half to write it the first time. I didn't know what was going on. So anyway, so there's nothing changed here then, huh? Nothing changed.
He increased the winstrol and he increased both the injectable and the oral, and he added in the halotestin and he bumped up the Anavar a little bit more and removed the Novadex. So now he's the kitchen sink approach basically at week 4.
Yeah.
Just basically every anabolic steroid you can get is in there represented besides Superdrol.
Yeah.
I think the Superdrol not enter. Okay.
You know what's funny is how like halfway through the prep they were like, we need the Proviron here, and they're like, no, now we don't need it. Now the drying effect of the Proviron is non-existent at week 4. We thought we needed it at week 8 though, specifically.
I think the proviron was there to combat from the severe estrogen surge that the 50 milligrams of Dianabol caused.
Bro, you're thinking way too smart of the cycle, I think.
He's like, you went to 50 milligrams of Dianabol and you got like a tomato face, like a moon face. And then the coach was like, oh, yeah, we need to bring that estrogen down. Here's some proviron, right? And then it worked. But in reality, it was just the Dianabol metabolizing.
Yeah, maybe.
So, I mean, the Halo testing. So I thought about this too, right? I don't know. These are a lot of, to me, these seem like slightly similar compounds, all 4 of these. So I went and asked people, like, in your experience prepping for shows, do you see that these things have a significant difference when you add them together, as opposed to taking like 300 milligrams of halotestin, which nobody should ever do, obviously. But does it add something? And everybody told me, all the top coaches that I asked, which includes some of the best coaches, by the way, told me, that I didn't mention their names, told me, yeah, it does make a difference. Yeah. So I don't know if all of them make a difference, but apparently, I know halotestin is slightly, and winstrol is slightly different in character, but they're a little bit similar, right? What do you think?
Well, the effect you're trying to achieve with them definitely overlaps quite significantly. How they actually... Pardon?
Do you think the mechanisms overlap as well?
Well, obviously they all like inherently are different compounds and do have different affinities for different receptors, but ultimately like we're achieving the same either AR agonism, GR antagonism, MR, modulation. At the end of the day, I don't really know that I would, if I had the same guy do half winstrol, half halo, half anavar versus like high dose halo, high dose var that are higher, and then no winstrol or something of oral, I don't necessarily know that I would see like a bigger benefit from like spreading it out over the 3 versus using what I see to be, I don't know, like oral. I would rather push halo closer to the show than like crank the winstrol through the fucking roof,
I would keep the winstrol in and the halotestin a little bit higher, but take the anavar out, because I don't think that 70 milligrams of anavar per day contributes anything over the trembolone, winstrol, and halotestin, which is already present.
Like, I think the injectable winstrol is enough for the winstrol angle, personally.
Yeah.
That I agree with too. And by the way, I honestly, even though Steve, you know more than us, or more than me, about injectable winstrol, but I've heard too many horror stories myself. I would never.
Yeah. Like, how many guys have had to pull out of shows because of like last minute, like fast acting winstrol shots?
So
the pro bodybuilding is taking about risks, right? So
yeah, I guess
if you know what you're doing, you get a good source for winstrol that you trust, and you know how to dilute it and do sterile and safe administration practices. Then it's a game changer, honestly.
So this is really weird, right? So he has 15 milligrams of halo here. Now it goes to 10. Next, they reduce halo as the competition approaches, but keep the winstrol the same. And now it's 100 milligrams proviron again.
Yeah, because 100 milligrams proviron easily replaces 5 milligrams of halo.
I know, I don't know what's good, but this is not our athlete's issue. This was a guy who gave him some advice, So there's also T3. It was introduced. We didn't talk.
I think some of these changes are based on feedback. So there's a couple arbitrary changes that took place based on how he started looking and started changing. So I think that's the reason, right? He had like a cycle outline, and then depending on how he was progressing leading into the show, some changes were made, which I don't really agree with those changes. But then again, my cycles at the end of athletes that I coach, they might look very dynamic as well. When you look at it, it don't really make sense on paper, but based on the feedback of the pictures, it does make sense.
I mean, that's what I was about to talk about when I cut myself off. It was just this idea that, like, I'm a nerd and I like to read things, but I like to read things because I want to know the truth about the world. I don't want to read things because I want to argue about what I read about. So if I see something in the world that doesn't match what I read enough times, I think what I read is wrong, So for me, like when I heard, oh no, if you use an AI with a SERM, it does look different. I believe these guys. They know what they're doing. It's like this joke they used to tell when I was an economics undergrad. Economists used to say there's a joke. There's 2 economists walking down the street. They see $100 bill. One says there's $100 bill in the street. The other says, no, if there was, somebody would have picked it up. So they keep walking. It's the efficient market hypothesis, right? They would be already. I do that all the time. Sometimes my wife comes up with a business idea. I'm like, if that was that, somebody would have already done it. There's something wrong with that idea. So you can't just ignore the reality.
It's a huge discrepancy in the bodybuilding space and the medical literature, because we try to extrapolate, right? I made this a topic on one of the Bio Bros, but we didn't get to it. Is that the medical literature is based on medical issues, and then we try to take from these studies and incorporate it for bodybuilding. But it's so far above and beyond of what has been researched, and we can do our best to interpret it and make it practical. But in the practical application in the real world, a lot of the medical literature doesn't play out. And a lot of stuff we do in bodybuilding is way ahead of the medical literature. We do particular things which then later get proven by science. Mm-hmm. So, right, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. But what we say in bodybuilding, if it works, it works. Now, there's a caveat there. If it works, but does it detract from your health now and decades from now? And that's the hard part. That's the really hard part.
Yeah. The most important thing when you look at research and try to use it in your life is what's called, in study design methodology, it's called external validity. So your study may have like internal validity within some system that you're designing to study, but not the real life system. External validity means like how applicable is this result to the actual population that you would want to use it in. Right. And so depending on the study design, some studies are finding out mechanisms, but the world is so complicated that that's just one part of the mechanism. There's a big structure that you're not accounting for. You know what I mean? The annoying thing is that when people who don't like studies will be like, "Oh, you're wrong. The study's wrong." Well, the study is studying something else. It's not what you're, talking about. You know what I mean?
Right. And then there's a huge confirmation bias on the side of the coaches and the people that educate, because they only get confirmation from the people that follow their practices and good results, or the people that gravitate towards them. So that's why you have guys that are specialized in androgen only cycles, right? Tian and Clark, for example. There's nothing wrong with his protocol, but everybody that believes in that protocol gravitates towards him, to the point that everybody that he talks with confirms it for him, right? So he gets highly specialized. And then things that I do, right, in my practices, I get people that gravitate towards that. And same with Derek for hair loss, or you for your genetic analysis, right? So you get a confirmation bias due to the speciality that
they select to follow your channel, which by definition means it may have been helpful for them originally. So you're not getting a full survey, you're getting a biased population. Exactly.
Yeah, because people that the advice didn't work for, they'll move on.
That's
talk with them.
When you're in grad school, Steve, they do like a whole course on just sampling methods, just how to sample the population, how to get a real reflective sample. That's how. Okay, guys, we didn't comment on this real quick. This has been going on a long time. I'll try to be a bit faster. But
it's the longest single topic that we.
I'm sorry, but the T3. I just wanted to comment. Like the 25 micrograms of T3, it was instituted this 4th to 2nd week for the first time on the morning. I just thought, like, if it's 25 micrograms, why don't you do 12.5 in the morning and 12.5 at noon or something? So they do a burst suddenly. And then we're looking at the last 2 weeks here next. So the T3 was raised, and it was still once a day. The clen was raised, and we had this issue here. I don't know how to describe it.
So definitely need some Nebivolol at this point.
But I don't know if it would affect his. You mean the last week, couple of weeks, just in case?
Yeah, with this much thyroid and clenbuterol, of course it's competition, so that it goes out of the door, because it might inhibit fat loss at the end.
Yeah, so this guy advised him to add 25 micrograms on top. It used to be 25. He used to just do 25, and he used to do his Novadex and Arimidex.
These adjustments, like when I look at this as a coach that did do contest prep in the past, it looks like the competitor was behind, and certain changes were made to speed up the fat loss process, causing him to be a little bit overly depleted at the end. Because when I look at this cycle, I'm like, okay, it's a little bit too much of this, a little bit too much of that. And it insinuates that he was behind on prep. And maybe the next time this competitor starts at 16 weeks, a little bit earlier, way moderate dosages, right? More injectables, less orals. And then at week 6, you go ham, right? You go all in with the Trimbolone sandwich and then the Masterone and the injectable winstrol and that kind of stuff. Because then at least your health is insured for a longer period of time. You have more time to diet. And then by week 6, you should already be 6% body fat. So he doesn't need the high dose of clen and the high dose of T3, right? And hopefully 5-amino-1-MQ and a GLP-1 receptor agonist can get the job done that way, right? Which is inherently way safer on the heart.
I just have to interject in defense of the client. He was in shape. He was in shape. This guy was doing...
Okay.
I can tell because he wasn't, because I was watching him. He wasn't. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe.
He was in shape at the show for sure. He was in shape at the show, but was
3 weeks before he was.
He was also in shape. Yeah. Okay. So but I'm just.
We're kind of just assuming that this cycle was changed based on feedback. We don't know if this was just predetermined dosage selections too.
Pretty sure a lot of it was predetermined. That's the
so.
But look at that highlighted, bro. Look at that. 100 milligrams of Proviron, but spread out throughout the day. Only 10 milligrams of halitosin. Hey, it's your last week. You don't need much anymore. And then 70 milligrams of Anavar after meals, spread out across the meals. Also, by the way.
Yeah.
Weird.
And then I just wanted to point that out.
I understand that with Anadrol, right? If you take 25 milligrams of Anadrol with meals during your carb load, that inhibits some of the nausea that you get at higher dosages. Because you're trickling it in. Of course, sublingual is way superior, but who's loading 250 milligrams of Anadrol sublingually for 3 days leading into the show? I try to convince it to clients, and they're like, yeah, I'm just swallowing the shit with my rice and sweet potato.
You convinced them because you're the one who convinced me, and I mentioned it to him. So now the sublingual thing is gonna go down.
We'll
learn about it next time.
That's good. Yeah. So next time he has like a huge neck hair because he got a little bit of androgen receptor
highly development.
Yeah, it's like, that's the guy that Steve recommended to take sublingual Anadrol.
Exactly. So guys, I left. I think we reviewed most of the document. Do you guys Derek? You want to leave some closing thoughts for the audience? Or?
No, like I think we gave pretty appropriate feedback given, the context we had and what was laid out and some of the stuff we disagreed with. And I don't know, I think ultimately stuff should come down to feedback based on body composition changes, performance changes in the gym, recovery, is your hunger fucked up, all kinds of biofeedback, blood work, whatever it is to assess what kind of changes make sense rather than predetermined being like, well, clearly at this week out, you're going to use this much Proviron and then we're going to pull it out and then we're going to do this and we're going to do that, which is what a lot of people do. I would assume with amateur level clients, this is more prevalent than higher level, but to see this at like top guy, like when I say Olympia, like this is not a guy like out of the top. I don't even want to say how high he's placed, but it's like,
this is top, continuous in the top, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's there for comfort, and maybe it just doesn't know any better yet. Right? Maybe it hasn't worked with a coach that makes changes besides on the pictures, also on the blood work parameters and the biofeedback and that kind of stuff. Right? Some of the coaches, they have a very good international name, but they're very cookie cutter. Not all coaches are equal. Like, and I've had clients that ask me for a protocol like this, so I lay it out in front, right, from start to finish. This is probably what we're going to do. You can start ordering the particular compounds that you need or that we might need in advance, but I might change it day to day. And then you compare the cycle that I laid out and the actual cycle, and there might be 75% different, based on the biofeedback. And then it might look as weird as the cycle that we just saw, right?
No, I wouldn't.
I would never throw in 100 milligrams of Proviron.
Yes,
just randomly in there.
You wouldn't do the Cisternino also, like randomly just throw Cisternino. You do an Anthate. Why would you do Cisternino or prop? Why would you do the Cisternino? You have that long.
Cisternino has like some legendary status among some bodybuilders. Like it's the most anabolic testosterone.
You guys love that stuff, bro. I don't know why you guys love that. Bodybuilders love Cisternino. They all love.
I don't love it. All the pharmaceutical Cisternino is enriched oil. It's highly inflammatory.
They love the Cisternino also that comes in like packets, like from Mexico and stuff like that. There's have you guys ever seen those vials that are ready injectable, something like that?
My individual carboxyl esterases, which metabolize esters from testosterone, tell me that enanthate for me as an individual works the best. So it's testosterone enanthate and metenolone enanthate and drostanolone enanthate. Right? And I don't use drostanolone because there's no pharmaceutical drostanolone. Not anymore, at least. So my body, I know in 10 years of using steroids, that enanthate works the best for my ester, for my body. Right? It gives me the most stable serum concentrations, whether that's twice a week or daily administrations. And for some guys, that's propionate. But you can't throw the acetate, the propionate, and then 4 different esters of Cisternino in there. Again, it's a learning experience for all of us. Right? And if you got top with this kind of protocol, with a few changes, which we just recommended, you might get the big one.
Yeah, so I want to offer comments on what you just said. One thing I wanted to mention, if you're using like an enanthate, guys, we were going to discuss this on our last podcast. We didn't get to it. We didn't get to it. This podcast is about to end. I just want to say something real quick. Something really interesting. I'm going to make a video on it. It's called Natesto, intranasal testosterone. Normally, Natesto, when it was approved, it was delivered for people 3 times a day in each nostril you're supposed to put it in. So that would last you all day. I believe that using it once a day, the one dosing in the morning, could, like if you're using an enanthate ester, you don't need a prop ester to get a boost in the morning. Just 1 nostril or 2 nostrils of Natesto gets testosterone in the brain way better than getting it from your bloodstream. And Merrick Health also, I believe, has Natesto, don't they?
I believe so. Yeah,
I think so.
I'm moving to the States to get a script for that. I want to use that as a pre-workout.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, brother.
Yeah, I always loved pre-workout suspension, testosterone suspension, but the post-injection pain is brutal, right? So an intranasal one would be that's something I would try.
Someone
of
tried
course,
it.
for therapeutic purposes, Derek. So it's not for off-label purposes. So I can still get my script, right? Yeah. Research purposes.
So, guys, my thoughts about why I thought it would be cool if we shared, the cycle was 2 reasons. One was because in my youth, maybe some people are listening to this that, they're 20 years old or whatever. I was 20 years old, and we used to have a guy online called GH15. And he was in the message boards. He claimed to be a professional bodybuilder. And his main pitch to people was that, hey, I'm a pro and I know what these guys really do. You don't know what they do. And that's where everything began in like 2008, something like that. These heavy doses started coming out everywhere. Everyone's on 15 units. He used to say GH15. Everyone's on 30 units, sipping pineapple juice all day, all this kind of stuff, right? Maybe some people did do that. It was originally Naso Sombati. I really believe so. But there were other people after him. He was jaded. And anyway, I researched a lot. If you look on my channel, GH15, you'll find the real story about him. But this guy caused, I'm not going to say it's his fault. I explored, but my health got harmed because he was BS at the time. So what I wanted to show you guys here was, this is that's why Derek was saying that. This is a top Olympian. That's what he takes pre-contest. It's like you said.
And it's not crazy.
It's not 8 grams because he's genetically gifted. And maybe if you need 8 grams, this isn't for you. And if you can see a top Olympia guy pre-contest, and by the way, off-season, he doesn't use more than 4 units either normally. So 4 units. You're talking about that puts things in perspective. Hey, maybe if I need much more than that, maybe I'm not meant for this.
No, right. So I calculated it. He fluctuates between 2 grams to 2.5 grams, which is not crazy. But the only thing of note of this cycle is that GH can be a little bit higher. I would remove the orals and save it for the end to preserve liver health, and maybe do a compound selection. But the dosages, the total dosages in the androgen burden is very, very moderate for this level. For this level of competition. So that's why it's good that most of his markers are not right. His kidney function is totally fine.
I know guys with more androgens in one leg than our guy.
Oh yeah. No, I've seen. Listen, I've consulted with several pros also, and they send me their protocol, and I cringe, dude. And then I see their blood work, and I tell them you need to retire. Yes. Of course, they don't do it. They don't retire, which is alarming, especially if you're a businessman and you got a family attached. If you don't retire and you just there's a lot of money to be made, but listen, it's temporary for all of us. And at one point you need to stop competing and stop taking so much drugs, and you want to have a good quality of life after you're done, right? That's why we can commend Seth Ferosi so much. Everybody's pressuring him to compete, and he's like, "Fuck this." Yeah,
you're right. That is very commendable.
Right, fuck this. I got a family. I'm a businessman. I do way better with the podcast and the videos. And that's my new avenue, right? And he made plenty of health scares and mistakes in the past, just like all of us. But he's man enough to step away from it. And he's got good genetics, so he can easily maintain a great physique on TRT.
And what's more important is that the people listening don't have to make the mistakes that maybe Steve or I made. And I don't know that I have health issues, but I definitely have something from the wild life I lived, You don't have to make all those mistakes. You don't even have to quit like Seth Ferosi. You can catch the kidney with the symmetric dimethylarginine and the cyastatin C declining and see it as it's happening and plan your exit. You don't have to be surprised. And I think that was the other advantage of introducing, this thing, because we showed you guys our initial steps at finding out his health issues and maybe how to address them. These are just the initial steps, obviously. We'll go further, but just to show you guys, and maybe other people can do it themselves.
So for me, right, I made plenty of mistakes in experimenting with high dosages of tren and DNP here and there and stupid cycles. And I did all my organ imaging, right? I got this non-alcoholic fatty liver resolved. I did my ultrasounds and my 24-hour urine collection test and my MRIs. The only thing I still need to do is a genetic test and a CT scan when I turn 40. And everything is basically okay.
Mm.
So even with all the mistakes that I made, knowing now with the clotting issues, I know that I didn't damage myself to the point that I have to worry about getting a heart attack, which puts a lot of pressure away, but a lot of people don't know. Right? They're worried in the back of their head, can I get a heart attack now, right? Due to the clotting issues and then the things that I've used in the past. But I did all the organ screening, and now going forward, I have multiple restrictions with my bodybuilding aspirations to the point it's barely bodybuilding, just good enough, right? And and I just stay here. I just maintain. So I don't need to do crazy cycles anymore. I don't need to eat crazy amounts of food. I still try to train as hard as possible because it's just me. But at least I know that I didn't damage my body permanently.
Oh, yeah. Well, you always use a sophisticated approach, but hopefully now, these people don't have to guess. Like, we learned a lot over the few years.
Hey, dude, there's no excuse anymore. Like when we started, and same as this competitor, right? We either relied on the gurus with like insider information to the point it's so secret that nobody's able to criticize and offer a better approach. So or we go to the forums, which also hide behind anonymity. And then it's so hard to get the data. And that's why I'm trying to give back and not bring my ego into it, because I made all the mistakes and now I'm opening up about it and how to prevent that and mitigate some of the issues and get healthy again. And just show people, say, listen, okay, you can make mistakes, but there's a much better way to do it. And now there's no excuse anymore because we got the Bio Bros and a couple other good channels that really promote safer practices. Actually, there's no excuse anymore. The only excuse that you have is that you don't have time, which you can almost make time.
No, sometimes people comment on my page like, I can't afford a CT scan or something like that. I'm like, bro, if you can't afford a
that I can understand, because in some countries it's really expensive. But I made a video about that. Just say, how do you go
to the gym then? How do you buy steroids? I mean, you can't have.
People don't know how to save money. So let's say you buy a box of testosterone, you put the same amount of money in a savings account.
Yeah, exactly.
That's for blood work. That's for blood work later. I've been doing this for 10 years. Every time I buy steroids, I put the same amount in a savings account. This is accumulating wealth. And then when I had my non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and I had to spend $15,000 in health screening, all the money was there. The money was there. It didn't make a dent. And actually that money was accumulating wealth because it was an investment, which accumulates wealth over time. So
two last things I want to
financially secure.
Two last things I want to mention real fast before we forget, because we've talked about Guy Cisternino before. I discovered recently that Lee Priest and Guy Cisternino, I heard Guy saying so on a podcast, both Guy has over 400 calcium score, CAC score, coronary artery calcium, 400. He's not 40 years old yet. And then Lee Priest has a number, but he couldn't find the paper for me, so I don't know what it is yet. But I just wanted to mention, if you have a coronary artery calcium score that's not 0 and you're 40 years old, you have a problem. And if it's over 300, you have advanced heart disease. That's it. It's advanced. So now you really have to work. Really work. If you're talking about, I'm going to use some fish oil or something, you're going to use you have to use maybe a statin, maybe a lot of things under a cardiologist, frequent scans. At that point, you're at advanced disease, and it can rapidly calcify after that as well. So I know. Nobody talked about it publicly. Like on the other bodybuilding channels, they seem to be thinking like 300 or 200 is a minor risk. No, over 300 is major risk.
I would cringe if I get that results. But my CT scan is about 2 years away. I just did the contrast on the MRI, so I need a little break. Because I did contrast has also been linked to kidney issues, which I had to sign a waiver.
I've seen more acknowledgement of angiotensin receptor blockade and even the SGLT2 inhibitors in very few channels, but a couple are mentioning it, but very few have talked about the real necessity of lipid modulation through things like ezetimibe and perhaps like a low dose of statin here and there. And ultimately, like, that's what is going to be leading to these like 100% blocked arteries, the Cali muscle thing. Like, these are avoidable outcomes, and you're not going to get away from it with an inflammatory lifestyle, eating 6 massive meals a day, taking gear, fucking training your ass off, training insane. Like, ultimately, you're going to, unless you're like highly genetically, I don't know, immune in some aspect from protective polymorphisms and whatnot, like it would be prudent as a enhanced bodybuilder to be on some sort of lipid modulating medications when you're on shit, in my opinion. So like, they talk about proactive diagnostics and whatnot, and I still have yet to see one channel bring up anything to do with lipid modulation above and beyond just, I don't know, like clean up your diet, do your cardio, take your fish oil.
I mean, literally, that's why I brought it up, because honestly, when I heard Lee mention this with Palumbo, and Palumbo responded to him saying that omega lies fish oil, something but you have a CAC score, you already have calcium. Fish oil is great, but like that's a serious issue. So I just want to make sure people, I think you ended it perfectly, Derek. I know you need to go eat and you're waiting for your food, but we have one last topic we have to discuss. Steve talked about it to me before you came on, which is he wants to know something. Steve, what's your question about? Do
you think I'm going bald? I need your professional advice. If you think I'm balding here and there.
He's serious too, Derek. He's not fucking around.
I'm serious.
It looks like
I'm starting to notice it myself. Okay, my haircut is horrible because this is a do-it-yourself haircut due to COVID.
Like the way you've cut it makes it like exacerbate the look of recession because you style it backwards too. So it's hard for me to tell, but it's certainly not the same as it always was. So,
no. So I think a combination of primobolan, I had a little bit of a DHT derivative action on the hair follicle in combination with brain-derived neurotropic factor, right, stimulated from the semaxillank or the cerebral lysin, is inducing a little bit of hair loss.
Which is weird.
I think there just comes an age where genes turn on and off from certain, and once things trigger, they seem to just, once something happens like hair loss, it seems like certain individuals, they go years unaffected by androgens, and then look at Jay Cutler, for example.
I was about to say
The guy used copious amounts of shit his entire career, had immaculate fucking godlike hair throughout his entire exposure, and then gets close to 40 years old, fucking decimated, dude. And now he has a hair transplant, and he's probably just on like a very reasonable dose of like, DRT or something.
I need to get a beard transplant. Look at this. I shave here. I have half a beard here. I don't like it. I keep shaving every morning for my whole life. Why can't I put this here? I mean, this, and then also like, the barber cuts a line.
You can do the plugs.
All that up there or somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Androgens migrate your hair, it goes from your scalp to your chest. It's nasty. So now I'm conflicted, right? I can do three things. I can go on an aggressive, more plates, more dates approved hair loss prevention protocol, right? Which would be a fun experiment.
Or become me.
You're saying, I think we're all overworked. The stress is getting to us. Or I can just shave my head like I used to be, and then I fall right into this category of pretty smart for a meathead guy. Right? Albeit that I was not as big as I used to be. Or I can stop the cerebral lysin in the primo.
I gotta tell
it's a difficult trade-off for me,
Is it the cerebral lysin though, or is it just?
I think it's a combination of. So I found several studies that show that increased levels of brain-derived neurotropic factor can exacerbate DHT-induced androgenetic alopecia. So
how much CDNF are you getting in your scalp from the injection? I mean, it might happen, but just keep in mind, I've used probably more than any human being, and I've not had any recession the whole time. And I was taking. And I do lose hair, but it didn't cause it for me. But
are you still on minoxidil?
No, Mike forgot to see my message for a few weeks, so I got a complete listen to this, complete reversal from the minoxidil. It's been 3 months, and this is the worst it got. So I didn't lose. It's very interesting. And also I wanted to comment, so Steve, like this is how it happened to me in the beginning. My hair used to be like down here, and it started going there, and then this would start receding. Like now I still have one hair down here by itself.
That's what I feel also, that this is receding from the top. Now, personally, I don't really give a shit because I'd rather just shave it and be done with it. But it would be a fun experiment to see if I can reverse.
But I will tell you
while still using cerebral lysin, because I like that compound a lot.
But I will tell you something. I have a secret to tell you. I've long thought that you were receding on the side. So I thought
never tell me. I got all paranoid and shit.
I thought so the whole time. So I think you have it a little bit. Yeah, it's going back. But
so is it getting worse? You guys let me know if it's getting worse.
I don't think it got worse. I don't think it got worse much. No, I don't. No.
I noticed it in some of the videos. So I just bought an iPhone 13, right, to record my videos, my working sets. And I look at it and I'm like, dude, am I going bald? I'm supposed to be immune to this shit, you know?
Oh my god. Yeah. Oh my god. That's happened to me before, actually. I once did go bald. Once at the end of my steroid using when I was an arm wrestler. The last 2 months, I don't know how I realized it. My hair was normal like this. And then one day, I think I saw a mirror or something, and then I called my girlfriend over. I was like, come here. Do I have thinning do I have a hole here? And she was like, a little bit of, I cut my hair short. And then
at least you see the thinning.
I was like, I thought maybe I'll have thinning diffuse thinning. This was a circle. I was like, what? She's like, no, you really do have it. I was like, you're fucking with me. She's like, no, you really do. So what I did was I shaved my head. If you ever see pictures of me with a shaved head and a long beard, that was the time. I shaved my head because I was like, fuck this, I'm getting rid of it. Then I realized I have a horn. I have a horn. I can't have a shaved head. So I ended up.
I got a few grooves in here. So I got to find a way to fix it. Plus, keep in mind, guys, I'm on 10 milligrams GHK copper injectable. So if you heard anybody saying that GHK copper can prevent hair loss, wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Oh my god, that was a great one. It was like people.
Of course, it's a cerebral lysin, right? Which is, listen, if I go bald due to cerebral lysin, 10 milliliters per week, so be it, dude. My business is just keeps growing and my cognition keeps going up, so it's well worth it. And
the fact that you've chosen to shave your head before and you like it is like you're in a very good spot to do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, right.
So,
right. Yeah. And I'm luxury because it's still thick as fuck, right? So it's I've been shaving since I was like 19 years old.
I want to make clear how bad GH fucked me with this. Just to be honest, like when I was in high school, I used to shave my head like you, Steve. I elected to shave my head. I had a tiny head. It was weirdly small. Like I remember a chick look at me, was like, "Your head is too small for your shoulders." Like it was weirdly small. It wasn't my shoulders wide. My head was small. So my head was always small. You know, guys with small heads, when they shave their head, their face looks a bit bigger, so it matches you. It's not like you have this thing behind you. And after the GH years and all that, when I shaved it many years later, it's like I'm wearing a skull cap. You know those actors when they try to pretend they're bald, and you're like, wait, your head is a lot too big for your face. That's how I look. Yeah. I look like that, and a lot of those bodybuilders also look like that. I
have the same. With like 2 grooves here, and then their third one that's hitting here. Yeah. It doesn't look good. So maybe all the videos I should record like this. You know, and this is got again. I'm sure somebody will point it out. Yeah.
I actually saw. I'll text you guys about it later. Okay, we gotta let Derek. I know your girlfriend's waiting for you, so we'll let you be, huh?
Enjoy your sushi and your sublingual Cialis.
Thanks, bro. Somebody's gonna send me this quick though.
I'll send it to you right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Cool.